Chapter 1279. The next moment, Chu Yang and the others almost cried out in shock. After the white-robed man appeared, he only made a hand gesture lightly. Suddenly, the few snow-covered trees and flat snowy ground at the direction of the intersection suddenly flipped. The trees suddenly turned into a few people and revealed themselves. "Did you discover anything?" The white-robed man who appeared first asked with his hands behind his back. "Elder, everything is normal. Continue to monitor." The white-robed man flew away with a whoosh. The white-robed men then turned into trees by the side of the road again. They were very lifelike. Chu Yang finally saw it clearly. These fellows chopped down the trees one by one, leaving only the upper half of the tree. They covered the broken parts with a layer of snow-like material. Then, they put on their white robes and stuck their heads into the tree trunk to stand upright. They looked exactly like a big tree that braved the wind and cold, especially those who were fleeing for their lives. If they were to pass by in a panic, they would definitely not realize that the trunk at the bottom of the tree was actually a human. Wouldn't it be very easy to catch them then? It was truly a work of art. Chu Yang was full of admiration. The four officers broke out in cold sweat. This bastard from the Li clan was really cunning. If it were them, they might really have walked right into the trap. How did this Chu Yang suddenly think of stopping here to observe? The weather was gloomy. Gloomy clouds floated to and fro in midair. Snowflakes fell gloomily, in a place where no one was paying attention. A gloomy cloud attached itself to Chu Yang's body. The sword spirit was back. "How is it?" Chu Yang asked telepathically. "The security here is very tight," the sword spirit said. "It's just the movements just now. There are 8 first-grade supreme martial artist experts disguised as trees on both sides. There are 20 martial saint experts lying in ambush underground. These are the ones that appeared just now on the surface. In the dark, there is another person disguised as a tree branch on each of these disguised trees. They are also supreme martial artist experts. There is an ambush like this every 15 kilometers. Once they discover something, they only need to let out a long whistle. Reinforcements will arrive from left and right. Everyone within a few hundred kilometers will also gather immediately." The sword spirit said, "This is the first checkpoint to get out." As for how many more checkpoints there were after this one, no one knew. However, what is certain is that this is the first checkpoint, and relatively speaking, it is also the most relaxed checkpoint. Chu Yang's face became heavy. He understood the sword spirit's meaning. This was only the most relaxed checkpoint, and it had already reached this point. Then, what about the other, strict, checkpoints? What would happen? These people seemed to have taken ecstasy powder. The sword spirit said, "Therefore, I used my divine consciousness to check them. Normally, they wouldn't be detected. Unless it's the divine sense of a low-grade supreme martial artist." Chu Yang rolled his eyes. If he was a mid-stage supreme martial artist, would he still need to hide here like this? Wouldn't he be able to just walk out of here? Pay attention. Chu Yang began to transmit his voice to the others. The current situation is, after listening to Chu Yang's introduction, everyone was dumbfounded. So it's not just what we saw. There's more hidden on the tree? How about this? Don't move. Big Brother Wan and I will go out first. So, Chu Yang said, "But you must remember, no matter what happens, you must not move. Be careful," everyone cautioned. Of course. Chu Yang and Wan Renjia looked at each other. Then, the two of them quietly got up. Immediately after changing their clothes, they swaggered out. There were mostly black robes in Chu Yang's tribulation space. There were only 2 white robes, which came in handy at this moment. Chu Yang became a sinister-looking middle-aged man, while Wan Renjia became a fierce-looking bandit. Compared to Wan Renjia's temperament, this was indeed acting as themselves. The two of them strutted out, each carrying a large bundle on their back. "Big brother, what do you think is going on? Who's so free to actually turn over the entire land?" Chu Yang said. Wan Renjia's fierce-looking face trembled. "Who knows? Maybe they're loosening the soil so that it'll be easier to plant crops next year." "Plant crops?" Chu Yang almost laughed out loud. Big brother is wise. Wan Renjie looked up. Of course. You must know that in this kind of black soil, planting more peanuts and soybeans will also yield a good yield. Yes, yes. Along the way, the two of them talked a lot of nonsense and boldly walked away. The Li clan members who were lying in ambush on the ground and underground were so angry that their bellies were about to explode. Who the hell would be so free as to send supreme martial artists to turn over the soil to plant crops? Which landlord's crops are so valuable? Unknowingly, they had already walked to those few trees. Stop right there. A few holes suddenly appeared in the ground. A few people in white jumped out. Who's there? Where are you going? Chu Yang and Wan Renjie were shocked. Wan Renjie chuckled and said, So there's an ambush here? Brothers, please. Don't try to curry favor with us. Or you. What do you want to do? One of the people in white said impatiently. It's like this. We're all in the martial world, so there's nothing to hide. Chu Yang went forward in a wretched manner, all smiles. We brothers. Cough cough, we've made a business deal, and we're in a hurry to sell it. Brothers, please do us a favor. As he spoke, he took out a few pieces of purple crystals and stuffed them into the hands of the people in white. One of the people in white slapped the purple crystals until they scattered all over the ground. He shouted, No. If you know what's good for you, go back. If you take another step forward, you'll die. Wan Renjie shouted, How can you say this? We brothers have walked this path for at least 8,000 times, if not 10,000 times. Why is it that we're not allowed to pass this time? Which clan's rule is this? Let's all walk on one side of the road. Brothers, you're meddling too much. Don't think that you can talk to us like this just because you're first-grade supreme martial artists. The people in white looked at him coldly. I'll only say this once. Go back. Or not. His hand was already on the sword hilt. Wan Renjie was furious. Which clan are you from? So unreasonable. The people in white said coldly, Northwest Saber Sword Li. Li clan. Wan Renjie immediately shrank. With a bitter face, he said, I'm sorry. The people in white didn't say anything. They just looked at him coldly. Cough, big brother, we're just a lone gang. Now, there's still the owner waiting for us outside. If we miss the time, I'm afraid we'll be hunted down by blood payers. Chu Yang took a step forward and pleaded, Big brothers, please be kind and let us pass. We'll definitely repay you generously. Go back. The people in white were unmoved. Chu Yang took another step forward with a bitter face. He wanted to plead again. With a flash of sword light, Chu Yang screamed and turned to leave. With a swoosh, the bag on Chu Yang's back was cut open. Smack, smack, smack. More than 10 items with purple gas fell to the ground. Instantly, the spiritual energy in the air became rich. Chu Yang screamed. He hurriedly kept them and put them into his arms. Wan Renjie also hurriedly kept them. Both of them nodded and bowed. Sorry for disturbing you. We'll go back now, go back now. Immediately, they turned and left in a panic. But it was too late. One of them had already widened his eyes and screamed, Purple Crystal Jade Essence. Top-grade Purple Crystal Jade Essence. Following this shout, the eyes of the Li clan's people instantly widened. Everyone was an expert. Not many of them didn't know what was good for them. Purple Crystal Jade Essence. Who couldn't bear to see it? This was a rare treasure. Not to mention other things, the Li clan has been mining such a huge purple crystal mine for more than 10,000 years, but we haven't been able to open a single piece of purple crystal jade essence. And now, this guy was actually carrying a whole bag? No, 2 bags. Didn't you see that the fierce-looking guy beside him was carrying an even bigger bag? This was practically a windfall from the sky. No wonder you could give out purple crystals so casually. You actually have so many jade essences. Now that you've revealed it, you actually want to leave? Where are you going? The higher-ups asked us to guard here, but they didn't say that we can't get rich. If we don't eat the meat that's sent to our mouths, wouldn't we be letting our ancestors down? Although these 2 people's cultivation wasn't weak. But we have more than 10 supreme martial artists here. What's there to be afraid of? Even if we get rich first, it won't hinder us from continuing our ambush. And it's a perfectly justifiable reason. These two people want to break through the barrier. So kill them. Stop right there. The white-robed man's eyes flashed with greed as he shouted. How would Chu Yang and Wan Renjie be willing to stop right there? The moment they heard this, they ran even faster. Immediately, someone at the side complained, "Keep your voice down, don't let others hear you. There's only so much. If the two sides come over to take a share of the loot, damn it, our share will be gone." Yes, this was the effect that Chu Yang wanted, to be quiet. What if the other two groups of people 30 miles away heard them? With a few swoosh sounds, the 8 supreme martial artists who were acting as tree branches on the artificial tree leaped into the air and blocked the duo's path of retreat. Then, swoosh swoosh swoosh, the big tree was also temporarily put down. The few supreme martial artists who were acting as tree branches also surrounded them with greedy smiles. A total of 30 to 40 people formed a big circle, surrounding these two fat sheep in the middle. Chu Yang counted. Yes, no more and no less, 30 experts. Everyone came out at once. Thinking about it, it was human nature. Such a rare treasure. If I don't come out, what if they don't share it with me? This is the purple crystal jade essence. Chu Yang hugged the bundle tightly. His face was full of fear and he said pitifully, dear bosses, please have mercy on us. In this northwest region, the two of us have never stopped paying the Li clan our respects. We have risked our lives to come here, and we still have to report to the Bloodpayers' Hall. It's related to our lives. A white-robed man laughed sinisterly. He lowered his voice and said, You still have your lives? You actually want to escape unscathed after encountering the elders? If you know what's good for you, hand it over. Another person frowned and said, What's there to say? Quickly kill and bury them, and continue the ambush. Don't delay the important matters. Chu Yang said with grief and indignation, Are you all robbers? We have always respected the Li clan, but don't force us to do it. It won't look good for anyone. It's already 23 points. I'll continue to write the 4th update, begging for everyone's monthly votes and to be continued. Chapter 1280. Don't force you to make a move? Make everyone look bad? A man in white laughed mockingly and said coldly, I'd like to see how you can make us look bad. How dare you threaten the Li clan? Even I admire your guts. Just based on this sentence of yours, it's a capital offense. Everyone at the side interrupted. We didn't want to deal with you at first, but we didn't expect you to be so rude. It was obviously them who were blocking the way and robbing, but now, it became the other party who offended them. In the blink of an eye, justice was in their hands again. You're really distorting the truth. Chu Yang said angrily and sullenly, Is there still justice in this world? In the northwest, the Li clan is the justice. A man in white laughed and waved his hand. Go. Deal with it as soon as possible. 5 men in white rushed forward. The others were all smiling and watching from the sidelines with their arms crossed. 5 supreme martial artists against 2 first-grade supreme martial artists was simply too easy, not to mention there were so many people watching from the sidelines. They were scared to death. Not only were they watching from the sidelines, 3 or 4 of the supreme martial artists even had the time to set up an aura field, blocking all information and sounds of fighting here. They must not let the other 2 groups know that there was a fight here. Otherwise, if they came to help, how could they not see the purple crystal jade essence? There were already too many wolves and too little meat. Wouldn't that be too bad? 2 supreme martial artists were betting. One bet that the 2 of them could last for at most 10 breaths. The other said very confidently, within 8 breaths. True enough. As expected, Chu Yang and Wan Renjie tried their best to resist. They tried their best to curse and escape, but their bodies were covered with wounds in an instant. Under the joint attack of several supreme martial artists, the 2 of them didn't have any power to fight back right from the start. Bam! Wan Renjie was hit by a palm and flew into the air with blood spurting out of his mouth. A white shadow flew up and slapped heavily on Wan Renjie's back. When it landed on the ground, Wan Renjia's body twitched twice and then stopped moving. Then, the white shadow took down the bag on his back. He weighed it in his hand. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. "Big brother." Chu Yang shouted in grief and indignation as he rushed over. But he was punched 3 times on the way. Then he was kicked once. Then he was hit twice with his palms. When he landed on the ground, he did not even look human anymore. He twitched twice and muttered, "Even if I become a ghost, I won't." He had lost his aura. The eyes of the 4 officers who were watching from the top of the mountain seemed to be spitting fire. They were about to rush out. However, he was stopped by Wei Wen and the others. "Calm down. They are just a ploy. How can they just throw their lives away?" One of the officers retorted angrily, "Bullshit. They are supreme being level cultivators. There's nothing fake about the current battle at all. They are truly injured. How can they fake it like this?" Wei Wuyan and the others were also on tenterhooks. However, he still held on to the 4 officers because he trusted them immensely. Over there. The 2 bags had already been opened, revealing more than 20 pieces of purple crystal jade essence. They were emitting an enchanting radiance as they were exposed in front of everyone. Everyone's eyes were filled with intoxication. "Cough, I'm only taking 4 pieces of these jade essences. It's not a lot, right?" The white-robed man who was the leader moved like the wind. He had already grabbed 4 of the biggest pieces and said sanctimoniously, "You can split the rest among yourselves." Everyone curled their lips. "How much is there in total? And you're only taking 4 pieces? There are 30 of us here, and it seems like there are only 22 pieces of jade essence. You're taking 4 pieces at once. What should we do?" "Cough, since Big Brother only took 4 pieces, I can't take more either," another white-robed man said. "I'll take 3 pieces." Immediately, someone said with difficulty, "Second brother, how can you be so shameless? Big Brother is the leader. It's natural for him to take 4 pieces, but what right do you have to take 3 pieces?" This second brother said, "Just because all of you have to call me second brother. Is that okay?" Seeing that this master took another 3 pieces, the person who spoke earlier said angrily, "Since second brother also took 3 pieces, then I'm the third brother. Of course, I can't take more than second brother. I'll take 3 pieces too." The next moment, a few hands reached out at the same time. "You wish." Immediately, they started tearing. In an instant, the jade essence in the bags disappeared without a trace, leaving only 2 empty bags flying in the air. 7 or 8 supreme martial artists were slower and had already taken nothing. Who took it? Hand it over." Instantly, 7 or 8 people were furious. Especially those who had fought earlier, they felt a little wronged. "So we did all this for nothing? We didn't get anything at all?" Immediately, some laughed, some made a fuss, and everyone quarreled endlessly. Beside them, the 20 martial saint experts looked at each other. Even the supreme martial artists worked so hard for nothing. Looks like the few of us have even less of a chance. They couldn't help but feel a little self-pity. But how could there be fairness in this world? Looking at the supreme martial artists who were sharing the loot with red faces, they could only be envious. They didn't even have the right to say a word. Right at this moment, a ray of white light suddenly flashed. This ray of white light was completely unexpected. Everyone had just killed a strong enemy and taken the treasure. Just when they were in high spirits and feeling aggrieved because they didn't get a share of the treasure, no one thought that there would be a surprise attack at this moment. And in this situation where there was no one else within a radius of dozens of miles, who would have thought that the 2 corpses underground that were already dead would actually rise up and attack? Before Chu Yang got up, he had already flashed his calamity sword. Then he rushed out quickly. In less than a blink of an eye, a ray of cold light pierces 10,000 feet. What harm is there in slaughtering the whole world? A sharp will bury deep and unchanging, gathering wind and clouds to become the emperor. A sword blade that has been famous since ancient times. A wind and clouds to the east and west. In short, he used all the sword moves that he could use in this period of time. His target was the group of supreme martial artists. On the other side, Wan Renjie suddenly went wild. Divine Sword, Inyang Bridge. His target was the group of martial saints. Once he saw Inyang Bridge. Once he used Inyang Bridge. Once he saw Inyang Bridge. He crossed Inyang Bridge. There was also a half-solid black shadow that also held a long sword that was shining with black light. Like a ghost, it rushed out. It was the sword spirit. At this moment, it was using its own body to participate in the battle. And at this moment, the whole area was still covered by the aura field that the few supreme martial artists had set up. No sound could be transmitted out. If the few supreme martial artists knew that they had set up this aura field to make it convenient for others to kill them, they would probably be so angry that they would come back to life and die again. Suddenly, something happened. Chu Yang's calamity sword was silent but as fast as thunder. Poof poof poof. 7 people were cut into 2 by his sword. He had already rushed to the center of the crowd and stabbed forward without stopping. Sprint. But at this moment, with a flick of his sleeves, a colorless and odorless smoke flew out to both sides. The target was accurate. There were 3 supreme martial artists on each side. Their noses were attacked by this smell. They were panting and arguing with each other. This colorless and odorless gas was really too convenient for them. The next moment, the sword spirit's ghost body just happened to rush here. With a poof, it used its special divine spirit power to seal this person's mouth and nose. Then, another surge of divine spirit power rushed in. It split into parts and wantonly destroyed the person's brain. In an instant, the person's brain was like tofu, poof, 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 blood splattered everywhere. Another 2 supreme martial artists were cut in half at the waist. Chu Yang was already in front of the boss. This boss's pupils had just widened in horror when he sensed the incoming enemy when the blood-stained sword edge was already in front of him. He retreated quickly to the side as if his soul had left his body. Like a shadow, Chu Yang chased after him. The sword light was still sharp and fierce. But the divine light in his eyes was even sharper and more merciless than the sword light. The sword light flashed. This boss didn't have time to shout. He attacked first. As long as he blocked it first, he would be able to whistle a warning. He didn't believe that he couldn't buy a little bit of time even though he was severely injured. But in the end, he didn't. There was a loud smack. In front of the calamity sword, his sword shattered like tofu. Then, the deadly sword fiercely stabbed into his chest, and the sword chi that rushed in quickly crushed his internal organs in an instant. His body fell limply to the ground. His mouth opened as if he wanted to scream, but he could no longer make a sound. There was only endless regret in his eyes. His last bit of consciousness told him that these 2 people could very well be Lang Yilong's men. So this was a trick, but how could he have been so naive as to fall for it? Chu Yang charged out without stopping. Then he turned back like a thunderbolt. His sword carried wind and thunder as he entered the group of martial saint experts again in an instant. By this time, Wan Renjia had already killed 11 people after he went on a rampage. There were still some people whose faces were filled with horror and despair. A few of them were about to cry out, but before they could cry out, Chu Yang had already arrived at lightning speed. His sword pierced into their mouths like a venomous snake. Then, one of their heads exploded. His sword had already reached another person's mouth. Smack, 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 smack. A few heads exploded like watermelons under a sledgehammer. The last person had just taken a step when Wan Renjia's sword had already pierced his back and Chu Yang's sword had also pierced his throat. On the other side, the bodies controlled by the sword spirit swayed, their throats gurgling. They were the most pitiful. They watched as their subordinates died one by one, but they were first poisoned by the innate poison and then had their mouths and noses sealed by a strange soul, unable to make a sound. They could only wait for death helplessly. At this moment, they finally reached the last moments of their lives. One by one, they collapsed. Their bodies twitched and then there was no more sound. According to the sword spirit's precise calculations, this entire process, from the beginning to the end, was definitely not more than half the time of a blink of an eye. In terms of our time, it was half a second. 30 experts had turned into 30 corpses. Firstly, it was because of the plan. Secondly, it was because of the sharpness of the sword. Thirdly, it was because of the suddenness of the matter. Fourthly, it was because of the ferocity of the poisonous fog. Fifthly, it was because Chu Yang's cultivation was already higher than these people's. These people were all first-grade supreme martial artists, but Chu Yang was a sword supremacy who was comparable to a third-grade supreme martial artist. He succeeded in one strike. Chu Yang waved his hand. On the mountain, Wei Wen and the others rushed over. Fourth update. Begging for votes. To be continued. Chapter 1281. When they got closer, the 4 officers were still in disbelief. Looking at the 30 corpses in front of them, they felt like they were dreaming. It didn't seem like Chu Yang and Wan Renjie were acting. Instead, it seemed like all 30 of them were acting. Wei Wuyan and the others looked calm on the surface, but in fact, they were also shocked. What exactly was going on? They were all discerning people. There was no need to talk about whether it was a drill or not. The battle just now was definitely a real battle. The injuries that Wan Renjie and Chu Yang suffered were also definitely real. Otherwise, which one of the 30 experts on the other side was stupid? If they weren't sure that these 2 people were dead, how could they have started to divide the loot so unscrupulously without any precaution? The least threatening enemy was, of course, the dead. Everyone in the martial world understood this logic. But what was going on with the scene in front of them? The dead suddenly jumped up to kill people? Damn it, even if they weren't killed, they were scared to death. What exactly is going on? One of the officers asked in shock, as if he had seen a ghost. This is a heavenly secret that cannot be revealed. Chu Yang laughed out loud. He quickly picked up the scattered purple crystal jade essence and ordered, "Hurry up and change into those white robes that are still clean. If there are any extra ones, take them away too." Wei Wuyan and the others immediately took action. Wan Renjie was still a little confused until he changed into the white robes. But of course, he kept his mouth shut. Only Wan Renjie had the right to speak about the situation at that time. But he was also the most shocked one. When he was chosen by Chu Yang to carry out this plan, Wan Renjie had already made up his mind to die. As long as the plan succeeded. If he died, then so be it. At least, his brothers could get out safely. So he agreed readily. But after he came down, Chu Yang secretly gave him a pill and told him to keep it in his mouth and not to use his martial arts to catalyze it. What followed was the battle. Wan Renjie could point to the sun, moon and stars above his head and swear that he had indeed done his best. He had indeed been beaten to death. The fear of death was still lingering in his heart. However, at the moment he lost consciousness, at the moment when the enemy also thought that he was dead without a single breath left, that pill suddenly turned into a surging current in his mouth. The enormous medicinal power instantly flowed through his limbs and bones, healing all his injuries. Everything was swept clean. The lost cultivation base was instantly replenished. His body, which had lost its vitality, was instantly filled with vitality. The broken bones were set in an instant. His entire body. He instantly recovered to his peak state. Furthermore, he had to win. Under such circumstances, they would wait for Chu Yang's signal and kill people at any time. Today's experience, Wan Renjie dared to guarantee with his conscience that it was definitely the most bizarre, most thrilling and most satisfying experience of his life. While he was thinking, the clothes on the white-robed man were stripped off and everyone put them on. "Let's go," one of the officers said excitedly. "Leave? Where are you going?" Chu Yang rolled his eyes. "We've already cleared this path, so of course." The officer was very puzzled. "The path has already been cleared? Not leaving? Why would we waste so much effort if we didn't leave? Besides, didn't you ask us to change our clothes so that we could pass off as genuine goods? That's why, you people. You don't have any sense of danger. Who told you that you have to leave after clearing the path?" Chu Yang said exasperatedly, "Follow me." Everyone followed behind him in confusion, only to realize that this little guy had actually returned to the mountaintop where he was hiding just now. He actually lay down at his original position, not even changing his posture. Everyone was instantly confused. "What's this for? We worked so hard to clear the checkpoint just to come back and hide?" But under Chu Yang's stern expression and gaze, no one dared to make a sound. After waiting for a long time, a white figure flew over. Upon seeing the situation, he turned pale with fright and roared at the sky. In the blink of an eye, figures rushed over from all directions. Far away on the mountain, they also heard this person roaring, "This place has been breached." None of the 30 people survived. How ruthless! Everyone on the mountain held their breaths and watched. Hundreds of miles to the left and right, countless white-robed men came over like shooting stars. Every one of them was an expert. Such a dense ambush of experts. Everyone's forehead was full of sweat. Immediately after everyone had arrived, an urgent discussion took place. A faint voice could be heard, "They broke through from here and took away their clothes. At this moment, we don't know how far they have gone. Let's chase after them. Quickly send a signal to the front." Immediately, another long roar soared into the sky. In a distant place, there were long roars in response. Immediately after, these people turned into huge sharp arrows and madly chased along the road. "Let's go!" Chu Yang jumped up. "This is the time. Remember to hide your divine senses and stop your vitality. Follow me." He took the lead, his white robe fluttering, and rushed down the mountain. Wei Wuyan and the others followed behind him and rushed down the mountain. But they saw that Chu Yang didn't take the original path. Instead, he went 30 miles diagonally and took another path. It was the same path that they had just taken to reinforce the enemy. It has been confirmed that the checkpoint has been breached, so the ambush here is useless. At present, all the guards on this path have rushed over there. This path should be the safest. As Chu Yang walked, he said hurriedly, "The current plan is to break through and go as far as we can. Even if we take one more step, we will be closer to breaking out of here." Everyone was enlightened. Chu Yang was making use of a misconception in people's thinking. If they broke through from here, they would escape from here. Everyone would have such thoughts and speculations. Everyone, including the 4 officers who hunted down criminals all year round. They were all asking themselves, "If I were a member of the Li clan, what would I do? After seeing that this place had been breached, what would I do?" After thinking about it, they were actually completely in line with the decision of the Li clan member. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. As long as you think like this, you won't be able to catch the enemy. Because Chu Yang didn't take this path at all. Instead, he retreated. He took another path again. At this time, the other paths that were originally full of ambushes had already been diverted away by him. This was equivalent to the cooperation between the enemy and himself opening up a wide path for the enemy. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but admire Chu Yang even more. I really don't know what this young man is thinking. He's actually so meticulous and far-sighted. Only Chu Yang smiled bitterly in his heart. He knew that this plan of his would definitely work. However, it was a bit of a bully. In the past, the Li clan didn't have people like Diwu Qingru or Mo Tianji. If these 2 people were in charge of capturing them right now, then Chu Yang's only option would be to retreat to the northwest and wait for an opportunity in the places where he had been hiding for many years, a diversion like just now. It would be completely useless against those 2 people. Chu Yang took the lead, but he didn't walk very fast. At the very least, compared to the speed of the Li clan members who were chasing like a whirlwind, he was at least 1 level slower. This made everyone puzzled, but they no longer doubted him. There must be a reason why Chu Yang is walking so slowly. I just need to follow him. When they reached the intersection, they could clearly see the big trees that had been chopped down lying haphazardly by the side of the road. There were also snow caves on the ground, but no one was in sight. Chu Yang leaped over without hesitation. Everyone followed him with fear and trepidation. They were constantly on guard against attacks from both sides. But there was no one on both sides at all. There was no ambush. Chu Yang actually went straight in. After running for 40 to 50 miles and passing through the second checkpoint, Chu Yang suddenly stopped and calculated silently. He said, "All of you, stand here and don't move. Don't leave any footprints." Then he flew out with a whoosh. His 2 feet stepped on a piece of flat snow ground, leaving a footprint. Then his other foot stepped forward, leaving another shallow footprint. Then, his 2 feet stepped forward alternately, and the footprints became shallower and shallower. Finally, he reached the stage where he could step on the snow without leaving any traces. Everyone looked on helplessly, not knowing what he was doing. Chu Yang's body flashed back like lightning. He said, "Follow me. Be especially careful, don't make any sound. Don't breathe. Don't release your divine senses, don't." Then he turned his body and entered the forest on the left and went straight through. Wei Wuyan was also a little confused. Chu Yang said in a low voice, "The enemy isn't completely stupid. According to the thinking of an ordinary smart person, he should be in a frenzy. At this time, it should be time for him to calm down. Once he realizes that he still hasn't caught up, he will definitely suspect that this is a trick to lure the enemy away from the mountain. At this time, it's time to change the strategy. Besides, we've already passed the second checkpoint. When they reach the second checkpoint, how can they not suspect that there's actually no movement at the second checkpoint? So, even if they haven't come to the 2 sides yet, they're almost there. What we have to do now is to go back to the original path." He kept his head down and ran all the way. On the other side, the furious experts of the Li clan chased crazily all the way. As they chased, they called for reinforcements and warned those in front. Not long after, they passed the second checkpoint. Finally, the leading supreme martial artist stopped and said, "No. Why isn't there any movement at the second checkpoint?" This suspicion made everyone's expression change drastically. Could it be a trick to lure the enemy away from the mountain? Definitely. This is terrible, we've been tricked. This supreme martial artist's expression became extremely ugly. Everyone split up to the left and right and go back to take a look immediately. The enemy didn't take this path. Damn it, it's a trick to lure the enemy away from the mountain. It's an old trick. He chased the air for 80 miles. What the fuck? This 5th grade supreme martial artist finally couldn't hold back his frustration and started to curse. Cough, the first update. Begging for votes. To the brothers and sisters who voted for me today, I really want to kiss you. Wah, I'll continue to write the second update. Chapter 1282. Everyone looked at each other, their expressions changing at the same time. If that was really the case, the enemy had taken another route, and they had used up all their forces on both sides, wouldn't the enemy be able to pass through unimpeded? Wouldn't they have been tricked badly? They had joined forces to create an unimpeded path for their enemy? Thinking of this, all the supreme martial artists felt as if they had eaten shit. Their faces were all red. Were they so stupid? Was he going to be toyed with like that? At this moment, everyone was furious. Split into 2. Go back immediately. The 5th grade supreme martial artist leading the group almost vomited blood. He immediately made some arrangements and was about to set off anxiously. "Elder, what about the people on our side?" The supreme martial artist who was originally guarding this path asked anxiously. "What should we do? What do you think we should do?" The 5th grade supreme martial artist was so angry that smoke was coming out of his head. "The enemy has already taken another route, what do you think we should do?" Before he finished speaking, he flew away with a whoosh. This time, he was really full of hatred. He was ashamed, angry, and aggrieved. He had been in the martial world for more than 1,000 years, and he was actually fooled by a junior like this. This was really intolerable. As he flew, he gritted his teeth. "If I catch these juniors, I'll definitely pull out their tendons and skin them alive." Figures flashed and the people on both sides instantly disappeared without a trace. Only the original guards of this path were left. What are you waiting for? Quickly split into 2 groups and chase after them. The leading supreme martial artist stomped his feet and shouted, "Why are all of you like leading birds?" Everyone hurriedly agreed. Then they split up in a hubbub and with a whoosh they jumped up. Chu Yang and the others who were carefully traversing through the dense forest were extremely meticulous in their journey. They were only halfway there now. It was no wonder that the Li clan didn't destroy this forest. It turned out that it was connected to the earth veins. Whether in terms of hardness or flexibility, it was dozens of times stronger than ordinary forests. And there were too many plants attached to this forest. They were all steel-like vines tightly intertwined with each other. It was almost as if the whole forest was connected by vines. If one wanted to walk on it, it would be extremely difficult. Everyone was very careful not to break the vines or leave any traces. It was as if they were doing acrobatics. At this moment, suddenly, Kong's tyrannical mood surged. Not far ahead, a large bird-like man in white robes flew across the sky like a bolt of lightning, rushing towards that road. Vaguely vicious curses could be heard. Hoo-hoo! White shadows flashed. At this moment, it was unknown how many people had passed by. Seeing this, everyone was full of admiration for Chu Yang. He actually calculated it so accurately. The other party had really returned. He couldn't help but think that if he and the others were still rushing along that road, the other party would attack them from the front and back. Thinking of this, everyone broke out in cold sweat. Let's speed up, Chu Yang reminded in a low voice. Everyone immediately came to their senses and rushed over with a whoosh sound. Both sides weaved in and out, one in front and one behind. There was only a distance of 5 li between them. It's equivalent to you coming over. I went over. Even if they had agreed to play the game, they didn't have such tacit understanding. Swish, swish, swish. Without any hesitation, Chu Yang led everyone out of the forest and onto the road. Then, the horse galloped forward at full speed without stopping. Now, they didn't deliberately slow down, but ran as fast as they could. Swoosh, swoosh. Just as they were a few li away, suddenly, a long whistle came from that direction. Obviously, it was a kind of gathering signal. Come quickly, the enemy has escaped from this road. On the other side, a few supreme martial artists looked at the footprints left behind by Chu Yang with heavy expressions. They have indeed escaped from here. The leading 5th-grade supreme martial artist's face was dark, containing a violent emotion that could flare up at any time. Forgive me for being blunt, 7th Elder. The footprints here, especially the first one, are a little too deep, as if they are afraid that we can't see them. I'm afraid they are deliberately misleading us. I'm afraid their real path is still somewhere else, another white-robed supreme martial artist said carefully. Nonsense. Ridiculous. What do you know? The 7th Elder flew into a rage. That white-robed supreme martial artist was still a little unconvinced. Although he didn't dare to refute, there was a disapproving look on his face. Your Jianghu experiences have all gone down the drain. The 7th Elder looked up to the sky and sighed. Our Li clan has produced such a mediocre person like you. No wonder so many people besieged them and still couldn't catch them. That white-robed supreme martial artist was even more unconvinced. He finally couldn't help but retort. Elder, please enlighten me and let me clear my doubts. Let me ask you, where are these footprints? The 7th Elder didn't want to explain at first, but seeing that many people were puzzled, he could only suppress his anger, but his expression was still as if he wanted to eat someone. It's outside the second checkpoint, 150 feet away. This supreme martial artist estimated the distance and answered fluently. Yes, if you were them when passing through such a checkpoint, although you know that there is no one, will you be extra nervous? The 7th Elder looked wise. Yes, yes. Putting himself in their shoes, this sentence couldn't be denied. So when passing through this checkpoint, most people will subconsciously hold their breath and use the highest level of cultivation to pass through while being vigilant. But after passing through, they will realize that there is no one attacking. The 7th Elder explained confidently, at this time, will you be relieved and have a funny feeling? Yes, I was nervous for nothing, so there is really no one. Is that right? That supreme martial artist thought for a while and nodded. Yes, it is indeed so. But let me ask you, when you are relieved, do you need to take a breath? In other words, the impure air in your body is expelled. And breathe in a breath of fresh air in? Is that right? Yes. If that's the case, can you maintain the same body movements when you're taking a breath when your emotions are rising and falling? The 7th Elder was like a cat that had caught a mouse, asking step by step, with a teasing tone. Oh. That supreme martial artist was defeated and retreated step by step. His face was already sweating. So this footprint will be left. The 7th Elder smiled faintly, full of wisdom. And after he left this footprint, he immediately realized his mistake and adjusted it. So, the second footprint is much shallower than the first. The third footprint is even shallower. As for the fifth footprint, it can no longer be seen, only a little trace. As for the first footprint, it has completely disappeared. That is to say, he has already adjusted his condition. If so, why is there only one footprint here? This supreme martial artist was still a little unconvinced. Idiot! Idiot! How can our Li clan have such an idiot like you? The seventh elder was speechless. Even 10 fingers have different lengths. The others have profound cultivation and strong mental fortitude, so they won't make such a mistake. Only this one person's mental fortitude is lacking. Do you understand what I'm saying? Let me put it another way. If you and I are in the same situation as the other party and we pass through here together, I will definitely not leave any footprint. As for you, it is hard to say. The seventh elder lectured. That supreme martial artist thought to himself, I will not leave any behind either. In my opinion, the one who can leave a footprint is you, this old fellow, but his heart was no longer filled with doubts. The seventh elder is wise. The crowd cheered together. The seventh elder was very proud of himself. He said earnestly, as the saying goes, you are never too old to learn. You must pay attention to this point. In this world, there are many things that need to be understood by analogy. For example, these few footprints today, at first glance, they are just ordinary footprints. But if you associate these footprints with the other party's situation, the current situation, and the other party's psychology, you will be able to get the best answer. This includes human nature, human psychology, overall planning, meticulous analysis, and rigorous reasoning. Not a single one can be missing. So, although all of you claim to be experienced in the martial world, you are still inexperienced on this point. Learn more from me in the future. That supreme martial artist interrupted the seventh elder's boasting. According to what you said, these few people escaped from here? The seventh elder said unhappily, could it be fake? Why don't you analyze it for me? What I mean is, it is better to chase after them as soon as possible, that supreme martial artist said humbly. What's the hurry? Since we have determined their route, it is as difficult as ascending to the heavens for them to escape. Everything is under my control. The seventh elder stroked his beard and said confidently, now, listen to my orders. You immediately send a signal to the front and tell them that the enemy is at the third line. Inform the people at the third pass to gather at the third pass of the third line. Immediately contact both sides and outflank this place. You bring people and follow behind. Carefully search the forest on both sides. Don't let the enemy hide in there. It will be terrible if they hide in the darkness. The rest of the people, follow me and chase at full speed. Let's go. The seventh elder is wise and brilliant. We are not as good as you. Long howls rang out from that direction. The white-robed men started to gather in that direction. Their murderous aura soared to the sky. The moment Chu Yang and the others heard the howls, they started to change their method. They flew close to the roadside and close to the ground. A person wearing a white robe and a white hat was the same color as the snow on the ground. Not to mention rushing across the sky, even if one stared, they might not be discovered. The figure in front of them was the third pass. With a few whooshing sounds, the people in white at the third pass rose and went to support the seventh elder. Who dared to neglect the seventh elder's strict orders? Naturally, they left without a trace. As soon as they left, Chu Yang and the others rushed over, as if changing the guard. They happened to make up for this moment of emptiness. Therefore, they went straight in. Even if they rushed, they were still too late. They had originally agreed last night that they would finish the update early this morning and go out for dinner with their wife. Indulging in romance. Well, they could only postpone it to tomorrow. They would probably have to postpone it to next month. How could they talk about going out for dinner in such an explosive state? They couldn't sleep during the day and couldn't sleep at night. When they finally fell asleep at 3 or 4 in the morning, they finally woke up at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Damn it. When can I earn money even without writing? The second update. I will continue with the third update. G. To be continued. Chapter 1283. They had finally made it through the first 3 stages. They had already traveled 200 miles. Until now, Wei Wuyan and the rest and the 4 officers still felt like they were in a dream. They really didn't expect that other than the first stage, they didn't even see a single human hair in the second and third stages. This is psychology. Chu Yang faintly smiled. After passing these 3 checkpoints, I can basically determine the level of intelligence of the person who set up this blockade. But you shouldn't be complacent. The next few checkpoints will be very difficult to pass. Besides, if I'm not wrong, they will adjust very soon. When that time comes, fierce battles will come more frequently. Wanting to keep going so smoothly, even in your dreams, it won't be so beautiful. Chu Yang smiled. Instantly, a knowing smile appeared on everyone's faces. Their originally tense nerves also relaxed a little. What should we do next? This time, it was the 4 officers who asked Chu Yang modestly. The 4 of them really admired Chu Yang from the bottom of their hearts. No wonder all the law enforcement officers in the world couldn't kill Chu Yang. Just look at his brain. How many law enforcement officers could keep up with him? What should we do next? Chu Yang smiled bitterly. We'll take it one step at a time. At such a time, even a deity can't plan the path to pass all the way. Who knows how long the Li clan's blockade is? However, the next stage will require a little bit of luck. Chu Yang's body flashed. He flashed into the forest beside the road. When he came out again, he changed into Li Tongtian's appearance. Right now, Chu Yang only hated himself for not remembering more people's appearances. As a result, he had no one to use when he wanted to put on makeup. Wei Wuyan and the rest beside him had also changed their appearances. Of course, there was no reference for them. They could put on makeup as long as it wasn't their original appearance. The 4 law enforcement officers were dumbfounded. Even in their dreams, they didn't expect Chu Yang to have such an ability. Everyone knew how to disguise themselves and put on makeup. However, at most, they could only disguise themselves as someone they didn't know or just put on a human skin mask. However, Chu Yang's method of disguising himself as someone the other party was familiar with. Such a method. They really didn't even think about it before. However, upon closer inspection, there were still some differences from the real Li Tongtian. Chu Yang grimaced. This kind of makeup obviously required skill. Moreover, it required a precise understanding and control of the human body's muscles. Everyone's face shape was absolutely different. It was congenital. It was not the same at all. If he wanted to completely change himself into another person, the pain he had to go through was simply unimaginable. Imagine tearing your own muscles and adjusting them into the shape of someone else's face, and you still wouldn't be able to tell, then he would know the pain. Therefore, Chu Yang couldn't use this kind of makeup for a long time. Once it lasted for a long time, the torn muscles might really not be able to recover. At that time, if he still needed to eat heavy pills for such injuries, that would be a joke. Chu Yang waved his hand. He angrily activated his movement technique and flew forward. His speed was as fast as lightning. Wei Wuyan and the others were actually struggling to follow him. Only Chu Yang knew that the enemy didn't have much time left for them. He had to end the battle as soon as possible and pass through the 4th stage in one go. Furthermore, he had to take advantage of the fact that the enemies in the 4th checkpoint had dispersed their forces and quickly passed the checkpoint. The experts of the Li clan guarding the 4th checkpoint were puzzled. Why was it that they had sent out 2/3 of their men to help out, yet there was still no news from them? Could it be that they had been caught? Just as they were puzzled, they suddenly saw a white shadow drifting in front of them. A white shadow rushed over as fast as lightning. "Who is it?" The guard hollered. "It's me." A gloomy and furious voice was heard. The voice was very familiar. Then the person came closer. "Where is everyone? Come out." "It's the Elder Master." The guard hurriedly bowed. He made a hand gesture and issued an order. Instantly, 15 people came out. "Why are there only the few of you?" Li Tongtian was furious. "Where are the others?" They have all been dispatched by the seventh elder. The supreme martial artist guarding the checkpoint was puzzled. Didn't we hear that Elder Master Tong Tian wouldn't come out? Why is he here now? Bastard! What does he know? Li Tong Tian was furious. He only knows how to make way for the enemy. He can't do anything right but spoils everything. How can he accomplish anything in his generation? The supreme martial artist was speechless. You dare to scold, but I don't dare to agree. He mustered up his courage and said, Elder Master, aren't you in the clan? Li Tong Tian glared at him fiercely. Where am I going? Do I need your approval? I don't dare. The supreme martial artist's heart skipped a beat. Did you discover anything? The elder master asked, especially that Zi Xiaoyan? The supreme martial artist was suddenly enlightened. So the elder master is here because of this matter. That makes sense. The elder master has been cheated badly by this fellow. He personally brought him into the clan, but in the end, this fellow made a move to exterminate him. This directly caused the elder master Tong Tian to be in an awkward position in the clan now. No wonder the elder master couldn't take it lying down. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to take it lying down either. I didn't discover anything. The supreme martial artist was in a state of fear and trepidation. The elder master was in a fit of anger now. You didn't discover anything. You're eating shit. Li Tong Tian raised his hand and gave the supreme martial artist a tight slap, causing him to spin 2 rounds on the spot. You didn't discover such a big living person? The supreme martial artist instantly felt so wronged that he wanted to die. Such a big living person, but such a big living person didn't leave from my place at all. Where did I discover anything? The 8 of you. Why aren't you leaving with me? Take another look at these good-for-nothings. Be careful not to be infected by their stupidity. Chu Yang, who was acting as Li Tong Tian, turned around and shouted angrily. Wei Wuyan and the rest of the 8 people were submissive. They hurried over. If there's any more negligence, I'll kill your head. I'll chop off your dog head. Chu Yang pointed at the supreme martial artist's nose and shouted angrily. When the supreme martial artist raised his head, the elder master Tong Tian in front of him had already disappeared without a trace. He muttered angrily to himself, What does Zi Xiaoyan have to do with me? He didn't lie to me. You're the one who's angry, yet you're here to vent your anger on me. You deserve it. Someone at the side said, Why are the people that the elder master Tong Tian brought this time so unfamiliar? I don't know any of them. The supreme martial artist quivered. You mean, you don't know any of them too? The other person nodded heavily. Oh no. The supreme martial artist slapped his thigh. Don't tell me it's that? Everyone was stunned. The more this supreme martial artist thought about it, the more suspicious he became. I was wondering why the elder master Tongtan would appear here. He was about to make a decision. Suddenly, with a few whooshing sounds, countless white shadows landed here. The one in the lead was the 7th elder. Now, the 7th elder's white hair was already standing up. Missing the target continuously and running back and forth tiredly, this 7th elder had a serious feeling of, I'm just a puppet that's being led by a rope. That kind of sullen feeling of, I will do whatever you want me to do. It was really unbearable. Especially the mocking looks on the faces of his subordinates, which made the 7th elder even more intolerable. Didn't you say psychology? Human nature? Martial world experience? In the end, he was treated as a fool. Isn't it great? And he still has the cheek to lecture others? The 7th elder was even more furious, but he couldn't vent it. Is there any movement here? The 7th elder's face was black. Just. Cold sweat dripped down the supreme martial artist's face. Why did the 7th elder come right after he made a mistake? Just what? You're fucking stuttering. The 7th elder shouted angrily. The elder master Tongtan brought people over just now. This supreme martial artist naturally didn't dare to say that those few people could be fake. As the saying goes, the ignorant are not guilty. The elder master Tongtian? The 7th elder was stunned. Then he gave him a heavy slap. The elder master Tong Tian is currently in charge of the clan's reconstruction. Why would he be here? Indeed. This supreme martial artist spun 2 rounds from the slap. His eyes flickered. It's true, bullshit. The 7th elder finally had a place to vent his anger. He slapped him left and right. He hit him very rhythmically. I'll make you blind. Since they aren't, those who went over are definitely spies. How many of them are there? Another person asked anxiously. Individuals. This supreme martial artist had a bitter look on his face, holding his swollen face. How can there be individuals? That person frowned. Lang Yilong, his 4 officers, the person who saved them, and another 4. There should be 10 of them. His eyes suddenly lit up. Could it be that Lang Yilong's injuries are so serious that he's dead? Won't we know what exactly happened after we chase after them? The 7th elder was furious. What's the use of just speculating? If we continue to chase after them, I'm afraid we'll really be led by the nose and run away. That person pondered for a moment. Then he said mockingly, after all, there are people in our clan who aren't very smart. There are quite a number of them. Don't you think so, 7th brother? The 7th elder's face flushed red at once. You, shut up. Listen to me now. That person said, all of you, lie in ambush at the front and don't move. Guard the main roads respectively. If anything goes wrong at any checkpoint, your head will be taken as an apology. Every half an hour, I'll come back. 2 supreme martial artists will soar into the air and observe the forest. They can only come down after an hour when someone takes over. If anything goes wrong during the monitoring period, your head will be taken as an apology. No matter what happens, no one is allowed to leave their posts without permission. Violators will be taken as an apology. All of you are only allowed to send out signals when you're in battle with the enemy. As for any traces or the like, ignore them all. If they don't have any tricks up their sleeves, they definitely won't be able to escape. Now, we're coping with all changes by sticking to the status quo. Even if they grow wings, there's nothing they can do. All of us are to immediately choose a random path and chase after them. Carry it out immediately. With this order, all the Li clan's lines of defense were tightened at the same time. One could imagine that if Chu Yang and the others wanted to pass through easily again, it would definitely be an impossible task. The situation worsened in an instant. Chu Yang's plan admittedly allowed them to pass through 4 checkpoints consecutively, but after being deceived, the enemy finally adopted the most correct strategy. Under such a seemingly clumsy method, it was truly impossible for them to escape even if they grew wings. 3rd update, begging for monthly votes. G. To be continued. Chapter 1284. Chu Yang rushed forward against the wind and snow, feeling more and more anxious. The heavy snow hit his face, but it couldn't get rid of the frustration in his heart. He hadn't felt this way for a long time, including that time when he fled from Great Zhao back to Iron Cloud. Even when he was on the brink of death, he didn't feel this way. He only felt this way in his previous life when he was suddenly surrounded at the Wind Thunder platform and was in complete despair. But now, this feeling rose again uncontrollably. He was the only one who knew what to do next. He didn't have a clue at all. Since he came out, he had broken through the 1st stage, the 2nd stage, the 3rd stage, and even the 4th stage. He had made use of an ordinary person's psychological blind spot, precise deception, continuous deception. It seemed that luck had always been on his side. Behind him, the 4 officers, Wei Wuyin and the rest were all full of confidence, looking very relaxed. Such a tight blockade was actually broken through so easily by Chu Yang. They would definitely be able to break out if they followed Chu Yang. Everyone was somewhat optimistic. But only Chu Yang knew that the most difficult moment was about to come. Luck couldn't be with him forever. Trickery could only be used temporarily. It couldn't be effective forever. To break through the Li clan's blockade, the most important thing was still power. But what he lacked the most now was power. The other party had made a big move. Just supreme martial artists alone, there were at least 100, or even 200 to 300. There would be no less than 50 supreme martial artists of 3rd grade and above. But on his side, there were only 1st grade supreme martial artists. The difference in power was more than 1,000 times. There was also the most important point: the number of people. In such an escape, one more person would increase the difficulty by 10 times. If Chu Yang was alone, he was confident that he would be able to escape. No matter what, he would have a chance of survival. Even if he was hunted down by 2nd grade supreme martial artists, Chu Yang was also confident. He would be able to escape. But now, he wasn't alone, and there weren't 2 people either. There were a total of 8 people. And, other than his own brothers, there were also 4 officers. This led to Chu Yang's dilemma. If he exposed his identity as the Calamity Sword Master and fought with all his might, he might still have a chance of survival. But the 4 officers were still there. What if word got out after he got out? They were law enforcement officers. And law enforcement officers were his greatest enemies. That was tantamount to bringing disaster to his family, and brothers. However, if he didn't expose himself, there was no way he could survive. Of this, he was certain. Perhaps he could survive, but what about his brothers? All these contradictions piled up in Chu Yang's heart. Irreconcilable. If it had been an ordinary pursuit, with his current powerful divine soul and divine sense, he could have easily avoided it. He had to pursue good fortune and avoid calamity. However, the current situation was that the ones participating in the battle were all supreme martial artists. As for Jizun, he could already perfectly shield himself from divine sense. Relying on their divine senses to shield themselves, they repeatedly cheated and passed several tests. However, the other party was also using this to deal with them. Similarly, he couldn't figure out the other party's tracks and arrangements. The surroundings suddenly quieted down. Between heaven and earth, there were only drifting snowflakes. Everything seemed to have fallen silent. However, a strong premonition arose in Chu Yang's heart when the surroundings became quiet. He turned around without the slightest hesitation and rushed into the dense forest. The sword spirit had silently lifted the accumulated snow the moment he had entered the forest. Chu Yang did not hesitate at all. He went in headfirst. Although Wei Wuyan and the others didn't know what he meant, they still followed behind him and went in at the same time. Layers of snow fell. Here, things happened suddenly. They were less than 100 feet away from the road outside. It could be said that they were very close. Everyone looked out at the same time. The next moment, everyone closed their eyes at the same time. Their hearts were cold. On the road behind them, several figures in white came over like a whirlwind, one after another. In an instant, hundreds of people whizzed past and chased forward. The 3 people in the lead were clearly at the level of 5th grade Supreme Being and above. Their movement techniques were extremely fast, like a bunch of shadows, and with a whoosh they passed by. If everyone was still on the road now, they would definitely be caught up. There was no doubt about this. If everyone was still staring at them now, just the subtle perception of their gazes would definitely be noticed by these supreme martial artists with keen senses. Death was so close. This group of people had just passed by. Immediately, with a whoosh, a large number of people in white swept past from both sides of the sky, rushing forward like a gust of wind. A sonorous voice could be faintly heard. Everyone, stay in your original position at the 5th stage. Don't move recklessly. Those who move recklessly without fighting will be killed. The cold voice seemed to be even more emotionless than the flying snow in the sky. Chu Yang's heart sank. He knew that the most dangerous situation had finally arrived. The other party obviously wasn't going to compete with him in terms of intelligence and conspiracy. Instead, they were going to deal with all changes by remaining unchanged. And this was the situation that he was most worried about. He didn't expect it to happen so quickly. If you compete with me in conspiracy, I will only compete with you in terms of strength. If you compete with me in terms of intelligence, I will only compete with you in terms of strength. The current situation could be compared to a scholar meets a soldier. No matter what, the other party is just using a big blade to greet you. What the fuck? / You are a poet? / Again. If you write poems, you are still slashed. If you write chapters, you are still slashed. If you beg for mercy, you are still slashed. If you ignore them, they are still slashed. Chu Yang originally wanted to use Li Tongtian's identity to pass another stage. But now, it seemed that it was no longer feasible. Everyone closed their eyes tightly. After a long time, they finally opened their eyes. 317 people have passed. Chu Yang's telepathic message entered everyone's ears. 1 7th-grade supreme martial artist, 2 2nd-grade supreme martial artists, 3 5th-grade supreme martial artists, 1 4th-grade supreme martial artist, 15 3rd-grade supreme martial artists and 22nd-grade supreme martial artists. 41 supreme martial artists. The rest are all 8th-grade martial saints. The sword spirit statistics were very accurate. Everyone's expression was heavy. No one spoke. With such strength, there were 10 supreme martial artists and above. No matter what grade they were at, they had the ability to surround and kill them alone. 227 8th-grade martial saints. Just the tactic of using numbers alone could also kill them. 40 1st-grade supreme martial artists could even exhaust them to death. As for 7th-grade supreme martial artists, one person could capture them alive. With such strength, there was no way to go against them. Chu Yang didn't want to fight them head-on either. But the problem was that they couldn't even avoid them now. Escaping had become a big problem. Chu Yang's voice continued to sound. And this is just those who have rushed past the ambush that we have already destroyed. We haven't even taken into account the experts blocking the way ahead. Looks like the Li clan has really gone all out this time. They would rather raise a mountain to swat mosquitoes than let us leave the northwest alive. Rough estimates suggest that the Li clan has mobilized at least 200 to 300 supreme martial artists for this operation. As for ordinary people, there are more than 10,000 of them. A sense of despair rose in everyone's hearts. How were they going to leave this place? The Li clan had been in charge of the Northwest for 10,000 years. 10,000 years of accumulation. For them to go all out at this moment, it really made them feel suffocated. Tremors came from underground. Everyone was shocked and astonished. Chu Yang took a deep breath. The other party has made a new move. They have dug out a canyon that is as deep as 10,000 feet and hundreds of miles wide about dozens of miles ahead. This is to prevent us from tunneling through it. That place is very likely to be after the 5th level. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Such extravagance. Just now, everyone had been thinking that they couldn't walk through the sky. If they couldn't walk on the ground, then they could only dig a tunnel and pass through the ground. But they didn't expect that the other party would dig out a canyon that was as deep as 10,000 feet and hundreds of miles wide just as they had this thought. One of the officers couldn't help but curse angrily, "This is Chu Ling." Everyone was silent. Chu Ling. This name was the reason why everyone had been safe until now. Chu Ling, the earth vein. It was the only way in and out of the Northwest. The terrain was sturdy. Although it wasn't as sturdy as the Black Blood Forest, it wasn't that far off. To destroy a mountain range or dig out a huge trench like the one in front of them, one had to be at least a 2nd-grade supreme martial artist who had transcended the boundary between immortal and mortal. Therefore, it wasn't that the Li clan didn't want to flatten the mountains on both sides of the Chu Ling Road. It was truly beyond their power. This gave Chu Yang and the others the opportunity to take advantage of the previous few levels. But now, the other party's 2nd-grade supreme martial artist actually disregarded his status and cultivation to personally take action, cutting off their last path of escape. The appearance of this canyon out of nowhere completely shattered the last hope in everyone's hearts. Under such circumstances, there were only 2 outcomes for everyone. First, they could all escape without any casualties. Second, they could all be wiped out without a single survivor. If they were surrounded and attacked, they couldn't even think about breaking out. The saddest thing was that they were now a lone army. They had no provisions and no reinforcements. The awkwardness of such a situation was really tragic to the extreme. Sigh. If only Master Lang was still around. One of the officers heaved a long sigh. Everyone was silent. If Lang Ilang was still around with his 2nd-grade supreme martial artist cultivation, there might still be an extremely slim chance of survival. But now, they didn't even dare to think about it. We're in Chuling now. There's still 7,700 miles to go before we can leave the northwest and enter the continent. Chu Yang said softly. Everyone was silent. Wan Renjia said sadly, "What's there to talk about leaving the northwest now? Not to mention 7,700 miles, even if it's only 70 steps, there's nothing we can do." Cheng Duing chuckled and said, "Originally, when I was only a 7th or 8th grade martial saint, I already felt that the heavens were my number 2. Now that I've advanced to 1st grade supreme martial artist, I feel that 1st grade supreme martial artists are nothing." Bao Bawan's face was bitter. "You're right. Damn it, I don't know from which motherfucker so many supreme martial artists jumped out. It really feels like a goddamn dream. If only those surrounding us were just some martial kings and emperors. How good would that be? I could even show off a little and then leave with my head held high." So everyone was speechless at the same time. They felt deep admiration for this fellow for being able to indulge in such wild fantasies at such a time. To be continued. Therefore, there must be quite a number of reclusive experts living in seclusion here. If we can find one of them, this isn't impossible, right? Thirdly, why must we be so fixated on charging out? Chu Yang said, "What if our goal isn't to charge out but just to survive? Then we can very well turn around and walk back now. Although there are still many obstacles, the resistance will be thousands of times smaller than when we walk out. It's not as if we can't keep our lives, right? And this is still completely relying on our own strength. As for food, we're already supreme martial artists. At the very least, we all know how to transform spiritual energy into water. Thirst won't kill us. As for hunger, with our cultivation, we shouldn't starve to death even if we don't eat for 3 months. Don't tell me that we, supreme martial artists, can't even hunt a rabbit in 3 months? Therefore, we won't starve to death no matter what." The Northwest is very big. Chu Yang said, "It's vast and sprawling. Although the Li clan has been operating here for 10,000 years, it's impossible that they can control all of it, right? Besides, if they push us too far, we can just turn around and head north into the vast wilderness. That's the territory of the 3 Stars Divine Clan. No matter how impressive the Li clan is, they won't dare to provoke them, right? Therefore, there are many ways for us to survive." Chu Yang said seriously, "But there's only one dead end. Why must we take this dead end? It's not too late to take revenge even 10 years later. What's the harm in delaying Master Lang's matter? It's better than all of us being completely annihilated here, isn't it?" Following Chu Yang's words, the expressions on everyone's faces gradually relaxed. Indeed, according to Chu Yang's words, they were indeed not without hope. Although the chances were slim, at least there was still hope, wasn't there? Since that's the case, what should we do now? Interrogation Officer 1 was energized. "Now, we need to do this and this." Chu Yang tried his best to use his brain and sort out his thoughts. Slowly, almost with a pause between each word. After listening, everyone's eyes were filled with confusion, worry, and even a little excitement. At the 5th gate, the Li clan's security could be said to be tight. In the sky above, there were 2 supreme martial artists standing in the air every 15 kilometers, observing the movements near and far. On the ground, all the ambushers were even more silent, waiting for their prey. Even the dense forests on both sides were filled with white-robed men on high alert. 2 2nd-grade supreme martial artists and 1 7th-grade supreme martial artist stood with their hands behind their backs under a snow-white tent at a corner not far from the gate. "If we still let them escape from the 5th gate with such a lineup, the 3 of us really don't need to live anymore," said the 7th-grade supreme martial artist solemnly. This person was the culprit behind the sneak attack on Lang Ilang back then, Li Qinglei of the Li clan. The other person nodded and asked, "How's Qin Yun?" Li Qinglei's expression darkened. He was struck by Lang Yilong's purple crystal hand. From the second day onward, his entire body began to wither. If it had dragged on for another day, his entire body would have turned into purple crystal and it would have been difficult to free him. It was me, who shattered his skull with my 7th grade supreme martial artist cultivation. I've sent him away. The 2 2nd grade supreme martial artists lowered their heads dejectedly. We must avenge him, Li Qinglei said in surprise. Qingfeng, Qingyu. We're all from the same generation as Qingyun. We're all side branches of the clan and have fought all the way to this day. I know your feelings. But do you know how I feel when I killed Qingyun with my own hands? He shook his head. It's as if. We understand. We definitely won't blame you, Qing. Li Qingfeng and Li Qingyu said solemnly at the same time, it's all that goddamn Lang Yilong's fault. So this time, no matter what, we mustn't let him escape. Li Qinglei's eyes were sinister. Given Lang Yilong's injuries, he should be dead. But if Lang Yilong is dead, then there's only a 1st grade supreme martial artist left. How could he have such powerful combat power? He was extremely confident in his attack. Logically speaking, given Lang Yilong's injuries back then, there was no doubt that he would have died. But now, the series of events made him more or less suspicious. Right at this moment, the supreme martial artist who was watching from above sent a telepathic message down. Someone's here. How many? Just one. One. The 3 of them were rather surprised. How could it be just one? Under everyone's watchful eyes, a person walked over leisurely from the inside. This person's white robes fluttered in the wind. His face was as clear as jade and he was very handsome. What an elegant and beautiful man. Just like that, he walked on the road and stepped on the snow, yet he looked like a celestial immortal strolling among the clouds. That natural and unrestrained elegance actually came from his face. It was none other than Chu Yang. His white robes fluttered in the wind. In just a moment, he had already reached the 5th stage. Halt! A voice shouted from the forest. Then, with a few swoosh sounds, a few people jumped out. Chapter 1286. Chu Yang? Extraterrestrial demon Chu Yang? The Li clan was well informed, of course. Upon hearing this name, they immediately knew that this person was divine Dr. Chu, heavenly demon Chu, who had stirred up a storm in the continent. Chu Yang is real, but the extraterrestrial demon might not be. Chu Yang smiled freely. May I ask who is in charge of this place? No matter who is in charge, take him down first. A sonorous voice rang out. The few supreme martial artists stepped forward. Chu Yang didn't resist at all. The next moment his dantian was locked and the circulation of his blood and energy was sealed. The few supreme martial artists heaved a sigh of relief. Someone inside said, "Bring him in." Then, someone led Chu Yang into the hall. Although Chu Yang's dantian was locked and his blood and energy was sealed, it didn't hinder his normal movements. He continued to walk in at a leisurely pace. After turning the corner, there was a snow-white tent. At this moment, 3 people came out of the tent in a single file. 3 pairs of eyes stared at Chu Yang like sharp blades. "Speak, why are you here?" Li Qinglei asked impassively. "I'm here without any resistance. Of course, it's to cooperate with the Li clan." Chu Yang smiled lightly. "May I ask who you are?" Li Qinglei smiled strangely. "You don't know who I am? You don't know me?" Chu Yang shook his head in confusion. "But I recognize you." Li Qinglei said mockingly, "If I'm not blind, the white-robed man who saved Lang Yilong and the others at the most critical moment that day was you, right?" Chu Yang was shocked. "Elder's eyes are really sharp. It's a pity that I'm blind. I actually didn't see where you were at that time." Murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the other 2 2nd-grade supreme martial artists. "Kill him. Why are you wasting your breath on him?" Li Qingfeng said sternly. "Don't be impatient. At this moment, he's already in our hands. There's no hurry to kill him." Li Qinglei waved his hand lightly. "Tell me, why are you here?" Chu Yang said proudly, "I'm here to discuss with you how we can continue to cooperate." Cooperate? Li Qinglei smiled lightly. Chu Yang said, "First of all, I'd like to explain that I took action back then because there were 4 other people who were surrounded. He's my friend. Senior, you are well informed. Naturally, you know who those 4 people are and what their relationship is with me." Li Qinglei nodded. "That's right. That was Wei Wuyan. Wan Renjie, Qing Duing, and Bao Buhuan are indeed related to you. So when they were in danger, I had no choice but to save them." Chu Yang said sincerely, "Jianghu's code of brotherhood is very important. I believe that even if you were in my shoes at that time, you would also choose to attack without any hesitation." "That's right." Li Qinglei nodded again. "Furthermore, your great enemy, Lang Yilong, the head of the law enforcement interrogation hall, has already died under your heavy palm." Chu Yang smiled lightly. "As for the remaining 4 officers, they are all dead. She has already become one of my people." "She became your subordinate?" Li Qinglei frowned. "Yes, there are many ways to control people. For example, using poison." Chu Yang smiled faintly. "You need to take the antidote every once in a while." Li Qinglei snorted noncommittally. "Go on." "Elder's concern is nothing more than that after we go out, we will report to the law enforcement officers that the Li clan is going against the law enforcement officers and bring about a huge disaster." Chu Yang went on in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. "But as long as we reach an agreement, this concern can be eliminated." Li Qinglei's eyes and expression kept changing. "The law enforcement officers are hunting for extraterrestrial demons all over the world. They have pinned me with this crime that I will never be able to turn over." Chu Yang took a deep breath. "Between us and the law enforcement officers, we will never be able to reconcile. Elder is a smart man. You should know that I am not lying." "Yes, that is indeed the case," Li Qinglei admitted. "Elder knows the Li clan's current situation better than I do. The Tribulation Sword Master is about to be born. The Li clan is about to face the 8 super clans and the law enforcement officers head-on. However, when the Tribulation Sword Master first appears, he will definitely be weak. Therefore, although the Li clan has a strong foundation, it is definitely not a match for the law enforcement officers and the 8 super clans." Chu Yang said. Li Qinglei frowned but still nodded. "At present, the 8 super clans have already taken over much of the Li clan's periphery. Faced with such a situation, the Li clan can only shrink and keep shrinking but can't retaliate. It can be said to be extremely aggrieved." "Indeed. From the looks of it now, the Li clan is very safe. But in the long run, the Li clan situation is as precarious as a pile of eggs." Chu Yang went on, "A moment of carelessness and the entire clan will be wiped out. This is not impossible." "Well said." As Chu Yang narrated, the playful look in Li Qinglei's eyes became even more intense. "And at present, the 8 super clans and the law enforcement officers have joined forces to encircle and annihilate me." Chu Yang went on, "Therefore, fundamentally speaking, our enemies are the same. The enemy of our enemy is our friend." Chu Yang went on, "Elder, I believe you agree with this saying." "Of course," Li Qinglei replied deeply. "And I believe you are also clear about my information." Chu Yang went on proudly, "Against the law enforcement officers and the 8 super clans, I, Chu Yang, am not completely powerless." A strange look flashed in Li Qinglei's eyes. "Oh. Elder, you should know about the massacre of the Tao by the 8 super clans." The corners of Chu Yang's mouth twitched slightly. None of the 700 supreme martial artists survived. All of them died an unnatural death. And the peerless expert who created this glorious battle record was one of my people. Currently, she is at the Chu clan in the flat mountain ridge in the southeast." Chu Yang went on frankly, "Of course, she is also injured. However, she has recovered by more than half after this period of time." Li Qinglei's eyes flickered. "I believe you. Although the 8 super clans tried their best to hide the massacre of the Tao, how could such a major event be kept under wraps? This was especially so for a big clan like the Li clan, which was all the more impossible to hide. The Moon Breeze duo are also at my clan at the moment, Chu Yang said. The look on Li Qinglei's face became serious. That's right. Wu Jueqing, one of the tribulations back then. He is also at the Chu clan. On this point, it may be a secret to others, but it is probably not a secret to the Li clan. Yes, I know about this. Li Qinglei heaved a long sigh. The few names that came out of Chu Yang's mouth were all big shots who could shake the world with a flip of their hand. Once one of these names appeared, it would cause a huge change in the world. What more when they were all gathered together? Elders should know about this as well. The two supreme martial artists, Bu Luqing and Ning Tianya, are our allies. Chu Yang smiled slightly. Their common younger brother is my fiancé. With pride and disdain on his face, Chu Yang went on. Supreme martial artists Feng and Yu's younger brother. She is my confidant. Poison Dr. Wu Jueqing is my younger sister's master. That peerless expert who slaughtered 700 supreme martial artists in a single battle is my best friend. Li Qinglei kept silent. But beside him, Li Qingfeng and Li Qingyu were getting more and more shocked. The background behind this young man was actually so powerful. A peerless expert who could slaughter 700 supreme martial artists in a single battle. Poison Dr. Wu Jueqing, one of the tribulations back then. Ning Tianya, Bu Luqing, Yu Lingxue, Feng Yuro. More than half of the people who stood at the top of the pyramid in the world were actually on his side. Any one of these people would be welcomed by the Li clan from afar. Chu Yang smiled lightly. We are not a match for all the law enforcement officers in the world, much less for the law enforcement officers and the 8 superclans. But with our strength, if we want to protect ourselves, there is no problem at all. Even if the Dharma Supreme and all the ancestors of the 8 superclans are here, if we only seek to protect ourselves, they can only look on helplessly. There is nothing they can do. Therefore, if not for the fact that we were forced into a dead end by the Li clan today, I would never have thought of cooperating with the Li clan. Chu Yang smiled. After all, cooperating with the Li clan is a matter of going against the whole world. The risk is too great. But the Li clan is not facing such a calamity. Li Qinglei sighed lightly. In that case, you are giving the Li clan a lot of face by coming to negotiate with us now? Chu Yang smiled lightly and said, Of course. Firstly, it is because I am trapped here now and can't get out. If the two of us continue to oppose each other, then it will be difficult for me to escape death. But the Li clan, apart from the 8 superclans and the law enforcement officers, has more enemies on your side. You've added another enemy to my side. Secondly, the two of us are cooperating. To me, the only benefit is to keep my life temporarily. But to the Li clan, this is a long-term plan. Otherwise, why would I surrender and come to see you just like that? Chu Yang pointed to the space between his brows and chuckled. Here, this golden line. Do you see it? It is the connection between two souls, united in life and death. Elders should know what this is. This is left behind by that supreme being who slaughtered 700 supreme martial artists in one battle. If I die, even if it is thousands of miles away, Elder, do you think that you can hide the truth? Li Qinglei's expression was rather ugly. Li Qingfeng and Li Qingyu exchanged a look. From anger, they turned into deep contemplation. None of what the other party said was false. Besides, the other party had really been forced into a dead end by the Li clan. That was why they had come to compromise. If they really cooperated with the other party, it would indeed be a good thing for the current Li clan. However, no matter how they thought about it, they still felt that something wasn't quite right. We are on the same side. Why should we fight each other? Said Chu Yang seriously. I admit that everything you said is true. Li Qinglei narrowed his eyes. But I don't believe you. I don't believe that you will cooperate with us. He narrowed his eyes. Firstly, I don't believe in your golden line. Secondly, I don't believe that Lang Ilong's officers will become your men. Thirdly, I don't believe that you will keep your promise even if I let you go. Li Qinglei smiled lightly. Going back on one's word. I have seen plenty of such cases. To the two of you, It seems to be more beneficial for you to spread the news and let us fight a bloody battle with the law enforcement officers. I find it very hard to believe that you won't do the same after you get out. Kuff, take a guess. Are they cooperating or not? Gee, I beg for votes. Chapter 1287. Chu Yang smiled. When people interact with each other, be it cooperation or friendship, the most basic thing is trust. I've already been honest with you. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. He rolled his eyes, revealing his sharpness. However, his tone was indifferent as he said, "At most, we'll just fight to the death." Chu Yang looked at Li Qinglei mockingly. "I dare. But I wonder if the Li clan dares." Li Qinglei was stunned. If Chu Yang had said this before, Li Qinglei would have just taken it as a fart and scoffed at it right away. He wouldn't even bother to say another word and would just kill this boastful brat right away. But now, he was in a bit of a dilemma. Although he said that he didn't believe anything, how could he not be wary? There were more than 10 peak-grade supreme martial artists over there. After thinking about it over and over again, Li Qinglei felt that it was still better to believe it was true than not. If he provoked such a strong enemy for the clan at such a time, then he really wouldn't be able to redeem himself even if he died 100 times. But he was still stubborn. "Chu Yang, since this is a negotiation, don't be so overbearing. Do you really think that the Li clan doesn't dare to kill you? Even if you have supreme martial artists behind you, so what? You must know that in a life-and-death struggle, no one will survive." Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, "Since you dare to kill, why are you still standing here? Who doesn't know how to talk back?" But he naturally wouldn't really anger him verbally. He asked, "Then what did you mean by what you said just now?" Li Qinglei only felt a little suffocated. Almost swallowing his anger, he said, "But, even though I don't believe you, I also really want to cooperate with you." He smiled lightly and found an excuse for himself. "Just as you said, if we cooperate, both sides will benefit." Chu Yang said, "Oh? Since you don't believe me, yet you want to cooperate. But how do you want to cooperate?" Li Qinglei said, "I only have one condition. As long as you can do it, I'll believe you. I'll immediately receive you with the highest level of etiquette. I'll even escort you out of the northwest with a grand ceremony all the way back to the southeast." Chu Yang frowned. "Conditions? What conditions?" Murderous intent appeared in Li Qinglei's eyes. "As long as you're in front of me." He chopped off the heads of the 4 officers one by one. "I believe you and we'll work together." This condition isn't difficult. Moreover, it was necessary for both sides to cooperate. In that case, even if you go out and say that the Li clan killed Lang Ilong, the law enforcement officers won't believe you. Because you are their enemy. Li Qinglei said, "We'll be even more at ease. As for whether you cooperate with us or not after you leave this place, it doesn't matter. You're right about one thing. Right now, we don't want to provoke enemies like you." Li Qinglei's words. It could be said that he had retreated 1,000 feet. He said that he didn't believe in Chu Yang's soul connection. The golden thread was united in life and death, but its heart was filled with apprehension. Furthermore, he also admitted most of what Chu Yang said. Therefore, the moment he retreated to the bottom line. In his opinion, such a condition was enough for him to confide in his heart and confide in him openly. And for Chu Yang, it was really too easy. He even had a cooperative smile on his face. He could predict the other party's expression of relief. Just as he said, he didn't believe that Chu Yang would really keep his promise. But now, the Li clan really couldn't open another front. With Chu Yang's departure, whether they cooperated or not in the future, he had done them a huge favor. If they didn't become enemies in the future, it would be a great blessing. Moreover, he had also solved the Li clan's biggest problem. Chu Yang's expression was very ugly. He sneered, "Are you threatening me? What kind of condition is this?" Li Qinglei took a breath and said, "There are several peak-grade supreme martial artists on your side. A mere 4 first-grade supreme martial artists can't do anything to your strength at all. Keeping them alive won't be enough to overturn the situation. Killing them won't affect your strength at all. As long as you kill them, the Li clan will even be responsible for the safety of your 70,000-mile journey. I don't know why you're hesitating. Li Qinglei indeed didn't quite understand. In his opinion, this was too easy a choice. If he were in Chu Yang's shoes right now, he would probably have dragged those 4 people over and killed them one by one to make his intentions clear. He had to protect his own life first. Even if he killed them today, he would come back tomorrow to avenge them. I can't do that. Chu Yang shook his head lightly. They've already submitted to me and are my people. Since they're my people, I have to be responsible for them. Not to mention that they're first-grade supreme martial artists, even if they're just weak scholars. As long as they submit to me, I have an obligation and a responsibility to protect their safety. If I really can't protect them, then it's a matter of strength. If I don't even protect them, then it's a matter of attitude. Perhaps you'll think that sacrificing a few people to protect a few important people is a very easy and normal thing. But you're not me, Chu Yang. Chu Yang said with a slight smile. Li Qinglei's hawk-like eyes stared at him sharply. He said dispassionately, but if you don't accept it, we'll definitely go to war. If you accept this condition, each of you can live for 5 people. If you don't, then it's foreseeable that all of you will be wiped out. They'll still have to die, and you'll have to sacrifice yourself as well. You must know that once it reaches that point, since you've already offended them, then there's no harm in offending them to the death. If we don't have any qualms, even if you have a grand supreme martial artist as your backer, it'll be a piece of cake for the Li clan to kill you if we want to. Why are you so stubborn? Li Qinglei sighed rather emotionally, with some mockery in his voice. Don't tell me, you still want to be a hero? Chu Yang said dispassionately, if I don't want to be a hero, even if I'm a formidable person, there's no reason for me to easily use my subordinates in exchange for conditions. They can die in battle, but as an exchange for conditions, I definitely won't allow it. Li Qinglei was really stunned. He had already compromised to such an extent, and yet Chu Yang was still shaking his head? In this instant, Li Qinglei even felt aggrieved. Incredibly aggrieved. What else do you want? You don't even want to kill 4 people who don't belong to you in the first place. You're in a disadvantageous position where you'll die in the blink of an eye, yet you're still as stubborn as a bird, coming to negotiate conditions without even offering a single thing? Do you take the Li clan for fools? If I agree to your conditions just like that, wouldn't it all depend on your mood whether or not you spread such news in the future? Would the safety of the entire Li clan depend on your mood? What exactly do you want? Asked Li Qinglei rather irritably. That's all I want. Chu Yang was calm and collected. Make way and let us leave. It's impossible for us to kill anyone. How audacious! Li Qinglei's pupils contracted. He let out a strange laugh. Under the all-encompassing net of the Li clan and in a hopeless situation of certain death, you actually still have the guts to amuse me. Heavenly Demon Chu, you've really impressed me. The murderous intent in his eyes became more and more intense, gradually approaching the point of condensing and taking form. Being loyal comes with a price. Li Qinglei said, stressing each word. Yes. Chu Yang said helplessly, and I'm currently paying the price. He raised his head. Looks like the Li clan isn't prepared to cooperate with me? It's you who's never thought of cooperating with the Li clan at all. Li Qinglei's voice turned from irritated to calm. This proved that he was about to strike. All right, since that's the case, there's no point in saying anything more. Release my restrictions and let me go back. Let's fight to the death and see what each of us can do. Chu Yang smiled helplessly. Release your restrictions? Let you go back? Li Qinglei stared at him as if he was looking at an idiot. Suddenly, he let out a strange laugh. Would I not eat a piece of juicy meat that's delivered itself to my doorstep? Chu Yang was furious. Are you thinking of detaining me here? Even when 2 armies are at war, they don't kill their envoys. How can you be so despicable and despicable? I've never wanted 2 armies to be at war, nor do I really want to kill you. There was a hint of frustration in Li Qinglei's eyes. I have to admit that what you said just now has been effective. We are indeed apprehensive about the forces behind you. His eyes shone with a blade-like light. But since you've delivered yourself to our doorstep, we can't let you go either. Chu Yang, I'll have to trouble you for a few days. He turned around. Take this little guy away and keep a tight watch on him. You can teach him a lesson. Send a letter immediately and invite Second Grandmaster here. Execute the soul control technique and completely control this windfall. Chu Yang's expression changed. Soul control technique. This was the most insidious technique of all. Using the cultivation of a supreme martial artist with an eternally solid spirit and energy, one could execute an energy confinement and control a person completely. From this confinement, one could extract the person's soul and refine it. From then on, one could travel thousands of miles and make the person under control suffer a fate worse than death with just a thought. In other words, the moment one used this soul control technique, they would become someone else's slave from then on. Such insidious techniques had always only been used by humans when they were taming high-grade spirit beasts. As for using it on a person, firstly, there was no need for it. Secondly, the person's thoughts were full of distracting thoughts and were difficult to control, making it easy for the person to backfire. Very few people could do this. After all, if the person didn't listen to them, they could just kill them. Since they could execute the soul control technique on a person, how could they not be able to kill them? At present, there were only a few supreme martial artists in the Li clan who could execute the soul control technique. Other than the Elder Master and his guards, there was only Second Grandmaster Li Xiangxi. That was why Li Qinglei had issued this order. The two supreme martial artists stepped forward with a sinister smile. A look of panic finally appeared on Chu Yang's face. Retreating continuously, he shouted, "Are you really going to execute such a heartless and poisonous technique? Aren't you afraid of being condemned by the world?" Condemned by the world? Li Qinglei laughed cruelly. Controlling you is equivalent to controlling the forces behind you. The Li clan only sees such a good thing as the king and the loser as the bandit. What does the world have to do with us? The two supreme martial artists reached out with a sneer. One on the left and one on the right, they grabbed Chu Yang's shoulders. Chu Yang said furiously, "Since that's the case, I won't stand on ceremony." Li Qinglei burst into laughter. "This little guy has already fallen into our hands and his cultivation has been sealed. How dare he boast shamelessly that he won't stand on ceremony?" Amidst his laughter, Chu Yang's body shook. Suddenly, a sharp and fierce sword light flashed. Chapter 1288. Chu Yang's dantian had already been sealed. Chu Yang's cultivation had already been sealed. Right now, Chu Yang was just an ordinary person. He could just barely move. There was no way that he didn't have any strength left in his body. Even if he was an ordinary person who had never cultivated martial arts, as long as his body was slightly stronger, he would be able to defeat the current Chu Yang. This was the common understanding of Li Qingyun, Li Qingyu, and Li Qinglei. This was also the common understanding of everyone in the world. No one had ever been able to unleash such powerful combat power when their cultivation was sealed. Absolutely not. Therefore, the three of them were very assured, very pleased. Chu Yang was already a fish on the chopping board, at their mercy. But no one would have thought that the fish on the chopping board would actually jump up and take a vicious bite out of them. This was something that they couldn't even dream of in their nightmares. But right now, this situation that they couldn't even dream of in their nightmares had really happened. The moment the two large hands grabbed his shoulders, Heavenly Demon Chu, whose dantian was already sealed and whose cultivation was already sealed, suddenly unleashed a powerful, desolate, lonely, barren, powerful, ancient, ferocious, and fierce aura. Then Chu Yang straightened his back. An emotionless, cold, and indifferent gaze that looked down on all living beings was like grass. At the same time, a brilliant ray of sword light suddenly shot out. All of this had happened without any warning, and all of this had happened in a beautiful dream. The sword light was brilliant and fierce. It ignored everything. The two supreme martial artists beside him attacked at the same time. Be careful. At this moment, the voice of Li Qinglei, who had been completely shocked into a wooden puppet, finally reached them. Li Qingyun and Li Qingyu fell out of the way with blood all over their bodies. There was a huge bloody hole in each of their chests. They were severely injured. Possessed by the sword spirit, he attacked in an instant. But firstly, he couldn't expose the devouring power of the Calamity Sword. Secondly, time was of the essence. There was an even more powerful 7th grade supreme martial artist waiting for him to launch a sneak attack. Therefore, these two sword strikes couldn't take the lives of the two powerful 2nd grade supreme martial artists. But even so, it was enough for them to be severely injured and on the verge of death. The sword light was like a waterfall, like a torrential rain. With a sudden attack, hundreds of sword strikes merged into a torrent and pierced Li Qinglei's body like a lightning storm. Li Qinglei let out a wild shout. He circulated his supreme martial artist's vital energy and activated his supreme martial artist's aura. He started the supreme martial artist seal and went all out to defend himself. At this moment, he couldn't attack at all. He could only defend. Puff, puff, puff. It was only for a moment. Li Qinglei's white robe was riddled with holes. Countless streams of blood. It was like a fine drizzle of mist, gushing out. In the blink of an eye, Li Qinglei had already unleashed over 300 strikes. His entire being. He had turned into a blood hedgehog. However, his supreme aura finally erupted. With a loud roar, a blast of air suddenly erupted. Chu Yang didn't expect to be able to kill 3 supreme martial artists just like that. Now that the sword spirit had possessed his body, he could at most fight against a 5th grade supreme martial artist. To be able to seriously injure 2 middle grade supreme martial artists. This was already a pleasant surprise. As for Li Qinglei, even with the Calamity Sword, the sword spirit could only break through the first layer of his defenses. 7th grade supreme martial artist, that was the level above the boundary between immortal and mortal. The sword spirit was far from being a match for him right now. Therefore, after this round of attacks, without waiting for Li Qinglei and the other two to come back to their senses, Chu Yang's body had already soared into the air. With a loud boom, he transformed into a swift and fierce sword light and broke through the tent. He flew out at full speed. When Chu Yang flew out, Li Qingyu and Li Qingyun's bodies, which had been flying out in circles, hadn't even landed on the ground. Li Qinglei was resisting with all his might and retreating. The other party's attacks were swift and fierce. Everything happened so suddenly. The most fatal thing was the sword. And it was a divine weapon that could cut through iron like mud. Li Qinglei held his breath and defended. At such a juncture, he didn't dare to open his mouth to speak at all. Because once he opened his mouth and let out a breath, the other party's sword energy would immediately enter his body and turn his internal organs into a pile of smashed trash. He watched helplessly as Chu Yang transformed into sword light and flew out like a thunderbolt, still retreating. His face was flushed red. He retreated another 2 steps before he regained his footing. He roared, "Despicable Junior! You're courting death!" With a flash, Li Qinglei disappeared. It was only at this point that Li Qingyu and Li Qingyun finally collapsed onto the ground, unconscious. Li Qinglei gave chase at full speed. At this moment, the fury in his heart had already reached a peak. Just a little bit more, and his body would explode from his anger. This was simply too infuriating. As the saying went, an 80-year-old mother takes care of her child. Li Qinglei's situation was even more so. Not only had he capsized in an easy task, but he had also capsized an aircraft carrier. Having roamed the martial world for thousands of years, when had he ever endured such grievances? When had he ever been toyed with like this? When had he ever been reduced to such a state where his clothes couldn't cover his body and he was covered in injuries? How could he not be furious? How could he not fly into a rage? "I won't kill you. I swear I'm not human." Li Qinglei's voice shook the heavens and the earth. Chu Yang's voice came from afar. "Kill me? Catch up to me first. Pa, I admit that I'll charge out, but what can you do to me if I charge back to the northwest? Even if I lay low in the northwest for 8 to 10 years, What can you do to me? Although his voice was clear, it was already very far away. The supreme martial artists outside were still in a daze and hadn't reacted yet. What was going on? Li Qinglei leaped into the air. From afar, he saw a white shadow turn into a white line in the wind and snow. Then he shouted from afar, "Let's go!" It was as if a few figures had leaped into the air from both sides, following behind this white shadow and rolling forward. In the blink of an eye, they had disappeared into the wind and snow. After them, "You bunch of bastards!" Li Qinglei was so furious that he really wanted to vomit blood. So many people had been hiding in front of the fifth stage all this time, right in front of him. He could have found them if he had carried out a carpet search. But not only had he not done so, he had even been ambushed by the enemy single-handedly. How humiliating! It was simply a great humiliation. Chase after them. Kill them all for me. Li Qinglei let out a long howl as he flew forward like a thunderbolt. At the same time, he let out a long, rallying cry. Attention ahead! The enemy is charging back to the northwest. Intercept them at once. Attention left and right. Surround them at once. Everyone, carry out a carpet search and advance. All supreme martial artists, lock down the space with your divine senses. Immediately! Immediately! God damn it, hurry up! Following Li Qinglei's frantic arrangement, countless people in white appeared. They threw away the huge trees on their bodies and leaped out of the caves. Those who were standing in the air flew straight into the air, while those on the trees had already turned into shooting stars. A large group of people in white rose into the air from the ground. Two supreme martial artists carried the unconscious Li Qingyun and Li Qingyu at lightning speed and chased after the enemy without stopping. The enemy's tracks had already appeared, and they had even revealed themselves in front of them. If they didn't give chase now, when would they? With a whoosh, the wind and clouds in the sky changed. So many people in white rushed into the vast wind and snow as if they were riding on clouds. The fifth stage, which had still been heavily guarded just a moment ago, had already become an empty city at this moment. Hurry up! A low voice, like the urging of the wind and snow, rang out. A weak voice sounded. However, the voice was urgent. This is our only chance of survival. A figure shot out like a bolt of lightning, flying close to the ground like a cloud. It rushed through the fifth stage in a flash. The next moment, without even stopping, it flew at its fastest speed. It fell into the 1,000-foot canyon dug by the Li clan supreme martial artists. The bottom of the canyon was already covered in a layer of ice. Below the layer of ice was a source of water. With a lift of the tribulation sword, the person entered the layer of ice like a loach. Then he immediately clung onto the outer rock wall and stopped here. Chu Yang's tribulation sword silently dug out a huge stone the size of a water tank. It was about 50 feet long. He activated his energy and pulled it out. Then he threw the stone behind him. Wei Wuyan caught it steadily. Chu Yang had already entered the cave. Another stone came out, and another one. A few stones were placed under the layer of ice without a sound. Quietly he stepped on them. The stones sank into the silt and could no longer be seen. Heavy snow kept falling from the sky, covering even this layer of ice. A huge cave had already appeared on the mountain wall here, big enough to accommodate 20 people. Everyone entered in a single file. Wei Wuyan was the last to come in. Then he used the first big stone to gently suck it in and block the entrance of the cave. From the outside, even if one dived under the layer of ice to look at it, one would still be unable to see anything. Even from the outside, there were no traces at all. Chu Yang replaced Wei Wuyan's position and carefully shaved off a circle of the stone blocking the entrance of the cave with his tribulation sword. Why do you have to remove this circle? Cheng Duing was a little puzzled. Brief. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. We have to stay underground for a long time. Without this small gap, even a supreme martial artist will suffocate to death. Hiding here, everyone finally heaved a sigh of relief. They were finally safe. I'm only curious about one thing. I'm not surprised that you could come back. But what I'm curious about is that you came to our hiding place immediately after you came out. But for the Li clan, You actually chased them all the way to the north? And it's obvious that you have an even more obvious target? Interrogation Officer 1 frowned and asked. He was really puzzled about this matter. If someone had lured the enemy away, then there should be at least one less person here. But now, there wasn't one less person. Besides, the Li clan wasn't stupid. If only one person escaped, they definitely wouldn't give up on the checkpoint and chase after him. Of course, there's a reason for this, Chu Yang smiled and said vaguely. Everyone was tactful and didn't ask further. Chu Yang heaved a deep sigh of relief. The one who led them away was of course the sword spirit. And only a sword spirit could have that kind of power. Creating the illusion of more than 10 people escaping together was naturally not a problem for the sword spirit within a short period of time. Chu Yang had this idea in mind when he first entered. As for cooperation, not to mention that the Li clan didn't believe him, Chu Yang also didn't believe all the promises made by the Li clan. Right from the start, Chu Yang had never thought of cooperating. The risky gamble this time was certainly unexpected, but it was also extremely bold. And it was indeed the only chance of survival for this trip forward. If it didn't succeed, Chu Yang could only really retreat with his people, looking for monthly votes. I don't need to explain the details of the process here. Everything is written very clearly. Everyone can read carefully and understand on their own. If I were to explain, I would need another chapter. So I'd better hurry up. Chapter 1289. Next, we're going to start. Chu Yang smiled and said, Is everyone ready? In this cave, we have to go all the way until we can't take it anymore. We're ready. Everyone chuckled. Compared to the life and death outside, what was the sufferings in this cave? Listen up. Chu Yang said, The reason why I made this space so big is not for us to sleep here, but for a place to store things. Next, there has to be a strict division of labor. From this moment on, we have to work non-stop until we can't take it anymore. What should we do? Tell us. Interrogation Officer 1 said generously. This is Chu Ling. You've moved the rocks here just now, so you can feel that they're 10 times heavier than ordinary rocks. But we have to fight our way out in such a place. I'll lead the way, Wei Wuyan will be second. I'll immediately hand over the rocks I cut out to Wei Wuyan. Wei Wuyan will pass it to the third person, and the last person will place the rocks in this space. Chu Yang said, This space can store 30 of those big rocks. After 30 pieces, we'll have gone more than 700 feet. Do you understand what I'm saying? Understood. Everyone agreed. The only requirement is that no one can make a sound. On this point, the last person will be the most tired, so we have to rotate. Chu Yang requested, How about it? Interrogation Officer 1 said readily, Interrogation Officer 2 and I will bring up the rear. For now, it seems. Brother Chu, your cultivation is deeper than ours. But Brother Wei and the others have just become supreme martial artists. Their realms are not stable, and the few of us have been stuck at first-grade supreme martial artist for decades. We're still confident about this. Chu Yang nodded and said, Then, let's begin. Regarding the negotiations outside and things like killing to get through, Chu Yang suppressed all of them in his heart. Some things had to be known by the whole world after they were done, so that they wouldn't be done in vain. But some things really only needed to be known by oneself. The next moment, the work began. Interrogation Officer 1 originally had some doubts, but he tried to do it. He realized that even after using all his strength, he could only stab his sword in, then use his energy to cut out a big rock and pull it out. He was almost out of strength. Chu Ling. After all, it was not an ordinary mountain rock. But Chu Yang was able to open up such a long tunnel? No matter how he looked at it, he felt like he was dreaming. However, in the next moment, he shut his mouth that was about to open. Chu Yang raised his sword and pierced it into the stone wall with a shua sound. It was as if he was cutting tofu effortlessly. From top to bottom, a crack as tall as a person was carved out. Then, there was a crack on the right side and a crack on the top. There was another one below. Holding the stone in his hand, the heart of the stone shook silently. Then his 5 fingers formed a claw, grabbed the stone, and dragged it out. 5 zhang long. The eyebrows of the 8 supreme martial artists twitched violently as they looked at the huge rock that weighed tens of thousands of kilograms. This job was really not easy. If it were a sovereign or something like that, even if they could escape from here and find such a path, it would be impossible for them to escape. He would also die of exhaustion. Wei Wuyan took it with both hands. He turned sideways and the stone was sent out smoothly. Wan Renjie caught it, Qing Duing changed hands. Lastly, second interrogation officer carried it and strode to the outermost part of the cave. He put it down gently. He finally understood why the last person had to be rotated so often. The few people in the middle were the least tired because it was not strenuous for them to carry it. It was just a matter of changing hands. The problem was the last few words: put it down gently and quietly. These words are really going to kill me. This was a huge rock that weighed more than 50,000 kilograms. To put it down quietly like a feather, 1 or 2 pieces was still okay, but they would be exhausted after 300 or 400 pieces at most. Chu Yang chopped out another piece of the same size in front and passed it to the people behind. Otherwise, without any room for negotiation, they would still not be able to continue with this job. Then he started to catch up with the progress. Chu Yang's speed was very fast. Sure enough, when they reached the 300th piece, second interrogation officer finally could not hold on anymore and was replaced by third interrogation officer. Chu Yang was sweating profusely in front. He just kept running forward, as if he did not know what fatigue was. In the blink of an eye, he had covered 7,000 to 8,000 feet. Wei Wuyan and the others all felt fear. From now on, count the time. Chu Yang handed out a huge rock and said, "Everyone is a supreme martial artist. You should know how much time is needed in a day. Starting from Wei Wuyan, count day by day and calculate clearly how long we have been in here." When Wei Wuyan starts to blur, immediately hand it over to Wan Renjie to calculate. "You must remember clearly." Everyone agreed. Just as Chu Yang finished speaking, his heart shook. Everyone seemed to have felt something too, but they did not discover anything. Seeing that Chu Yang was silent, they also shut up. The sword spirit was back. In the space of consciousness, Chu Yang knew that the sword spirit had led people out for a full 250 miles before he found a call and flew back as a soul. As for the Li clan, they were of course searching around that area like headless flies, but Chu Yang and the others definitely could not go out, because the checkpoint in front had not been removed. And the Li clan's blockade was getting stronger and stronger. If they went out now, they would be walking right into a trap. All the traces showed that they were digging holes below. Thinking of this, Chu Yang wanted to cry but had no tears. Do I have to keep digging for 8,000 miles? How long would I have to dig then? In one morning, Chu Yang had advanced 5,000 feet. 1,500 feet was 1 mile. According to the distance, they had already traveled 40 miles. Based on this speed, they would be able to travel 120 to 150 li by nightfall. The speed could be said to be very fast. But according to the distance of 8,000 miles, it was only 1% of the time, and this speed could not be maintained for long. After all, they still had to eat and rest. The 4 officers at the back were already sweating profusely and panting. Wei Wuyan and the other 3 replaced the 4 of them. After an unknown amount of time, Wei Wuyan reminded them that 1 day and 1 night had passed. Only then did Chu Yang stop. Everyone's stomachs were rumbling with hunger and thirst. Supreme martial artists could not eat, and could even not breathe. For example, they could not eat or drink for 3 months. It was totally doable. But there was a condition: do not expend a lot of physical strength. Like now, when everyone was so tired that they could not die or come back to life, not eating? That was a fantasy. What about our meals? Interrogation Officer 1 followed behind Chu Yang and asked with his eyes fixed on him. There are 5 of us and we have rations in our bags. But not much. Chu Yang said lightly, there are also some water and food in my storage ring. If we use them sparingly, it will be enough. Bao Buhuan wanted to say, I don't have any rations in my bag. But the moment he opened his mouth, Wan Renjie pinched him hard on the thigh. That's good. Interrogation Officer 1 was relieved. He said admiringly, "I didn't expect you to be so well prepared. In such a dangerous situation, you actually prepared rations." Chu Yang rolled his eyes. He thought, if I didn't have the tribulation space, we could only wait to become zombies underground, with the storage ring. Naturally, we have to make use of it. Also, I only got this thing when I came out this time. Chu Yang flashed the storage ring that he had stolen from the Li clan's purple crystal mine back then. He smiled calmly and said, "Out of curiosity, I put a few more things inside, especially food and drinks. Oh, there are also a few jars of good wine inside." What? As soon as they heard these words, the 8 of them immediately started drooling. My God, this lord actually has wine in reserve. Why, do you want to drink some? Chu Yang asked with a smile. The 8 of them nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Dig another 20,000 feet forward. Let's start eating. Let's drink, everyone, the jar of wine. Chu Yang said with a smile. At once, everyone was full of energy. Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and get to work. That's right, that's right. Hurry up. Don't dawdle. If you dawdle, I'll beat you up. It was undeniable that in such a dark and hopeless situation, the temptation of wine was simply multiplied several times more than usual. Under the temptation of wine, everyone was in high spirits, and they began to work with incomparable nimbleness. They worked until midnight again. This time, they actually dug out another 10,000 feet. It was a whole 3 times more than the 20,000 feet Chu Yang requested. Everyone was so tired that they couldn't take it anymore. Demon Chu finally showed mercy. He found a big rock and placed a few dry rations on it. Then came the main event. Under the eager gazes of the 8 supreme martial artists, swallowing mouthfuls of saliva in anticipation, Chu Yang slowly took out a jar of wine. This jar was really not small. What's more, it was genuine wine. Of course, Chu Yang would never take out the good wine that Shui Leihun gave him. He only took out ordinary wine. There were still dozens of jars of such wine in the tribulation space. But they couldn't eat too much. They couldn't drink too much wine either. After eating and drinking, it was easy to get lazy. At this moment, it was not good to be lazy. Chu Yang dug out a wine cup from the rock and said in advance, "Everyone can only have 3 cups of wine." Interrogation Officer 1 and the others wanted to cry but had no tears. Fuck, this is called a wine cup? This is called a wine cup, alright, how can this be satisfying? Just as the craving was aroused, it was gone. There's only 1 jar of wine. Chu Yang slowly kept the wine jar. So drink sparingly. At this time tomorrow, everyone can drink another 3 cups. At once, everyone had something to look forward to again. The scene was very comical. The 8 supreme martial artists each held a stone wine cup carefully, fearing that even half a drop would be spilled. They drank with infinite preciousness. Sip by sip, they had to swirl it in their mouths a few times before they could bear to swallow it. And once they did, they let out another long sigh of extreme satisfaction. Chapter 1290. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would believe that a supreme martial artist would be so satisfied with such an ordinary wine. If they hadn't experienced it themselves, Interrogation Officer 1 and the rest also wouldn't believe that they were so useless. After eating and drinking, he finished drinking as well. Everyone's cravings were only aroused and their stomachs were only half full. Finished eating? Let's start working. Chu Yang led the way without looking back, continuing with his plan of tunneling underground. Everyone complained. This bastard is even scarier than a landlord. Such a high frequency of exploitation. But complaining was just for the sake of moving their mouths. No one would really get angry. At this time, actually complaining was also a form of strength. And it was also a way to deepen their relationship as the excavation continued. Interrogation Officer 1, Wan Renjie and the rest also gradually discovered a strange problem. That was, Chu Yang's temperament could change. Sometimes, he was as gentle as the spring breeze, not anxious or impatient. His heart was deep but it didn't show on the outside. But sometimes, it felt very lonely and desolate, Very bleak, very lonely, and very distressing. Everyone felt strange. Could it be that this young fellow actually had some unbearable past? Whenever this happened, the speed would always be very fast. Chu Yang continuously excavated stones as if he was venting. The few of them also hurried to work in silence. Everything happened in silence. They just felt strange. This fellow's endurance is really not ordinary. We're already so tired that we're panting behind him, but he's still full of energy, of course. They didn't know that in such a high frequency of work, Chu Yang's soul had already gone back and forth 7 or 8 times. The sword spirit and Chu Yang took turns to do the work. Although the sword spirit was unwilling, he clamored, "I, the sword spirit, am the top figure in the world. I've never dug a lousy stone before." But under the sword master's tyranny, the sword spirit had no choice but to participate in the work of excavating stones. On the 3rd day, a new problem arose. There was no problem with eating and drinking for the time being. But humans had 3 needs. What about peeing? Even a supreme martial artist couldn't just go in and out. To this, Chu Yang's answer was very simple: think of a way to solve it yourself. His only request was, don't let me hear it. Don't let me see it. Don't let me smell it. Don't let me know. Therefore, everyone was like a thief when they went to the toilet. They secretly went to the back and quickly solved it. Anyway, it would be blocked by a big rock very soon. 3 days later, everyone rested. Chu Yang took out dry food, water, and wine. Everyone was waiting anxiously. Chu Yang took out a wine jar. Everyone was pouring wine in front of them and chewing on their food. He tasted the wine with a look of enjoyment. Chu Tianma said embarrassedly, "Enjoy your meal. I'm going to relieve myself in the back. Cough, I can't hold it in any longer. I farted just now. Did you guys smell it? Even I think it smells bad." With that one sentence, everyone's expression turned strange. At this moment, he was chewing something in his mouth. "Why did you say that? Do you need to be more filthy?" Especially Cheng Duing, he really wanted to cry at this moment. Life and death dilemma. Just now, when Chu Yang was working in front of him with his buttocks sticking out, he followed closely behind. His nose was only inches away from Chu Yang's buttocks. At this moment, Big Brother Wan's mouth was stuffed full of food and he was about to swallow it. Instantly, he felt that the food that was still fragrant just a moment ago had turned into feces. He retched and almost threw it up. "Fuck! Beat him up." The 8 people were furious and rushed up together. Then, he pinned the little one down and gave it a good thrashing. After a while, Chu Tianma, whose face was bruised and swollen, slipped to the back by himself. Everyone looked at each other and covered their mouths to laugh at the same time. Cough because they were cautious. So they couldn't make a sound. So, everyone, don't misunderstand, but please imagine how 8 men and a few old men covered their mouths to laugh like little girls. They felt disgusted. However, everyone's heart was touched. Doing such boring work underground for a long time. It was really unbearable for them to be mentally suppressed. They weren't young anymore. The youngest one was almost 1,000 years old. They didn't have the energy to make fun of themselves. Chu Yang's joke just now was to use himself as a punching bag. With a laugh, all the psychological pressure disappeared without a trace. He had put in a lot of effort. At the same time, the 8 people all realized something. Chu Yang's dry food seemed to be endless. They had been eating for 7 days and they could still be half full with every meal. They really didn't know how much stock Chu Yang had left. But no one said anything. As for wine, everyone had 3 cups each time. It had been 7 days now. No matter how big the wine jar was, it should have been empty by now. If they counted strictly, 3 jars should be gone. But Chu Yang's wine jar was still easy. He could pour out 3 cups each time. There was obviously something strange. However, no one brought it up either. They all knew that as the person in charge of supplies, Chu Yang's pressure was definitely much greater than theirs. He was such a young lad, yet he was able to do so much. Could it be that they, the old men, couldn't share some of his burden? Not long after, Chu Yang came back and started working. During this period, they rested once every 3 days. When they rested, they dug a big cave in advance so that everyone could lie flat. This was the most effective way to recover their tired bodies. However, even when they were sleeping, Demon Chu's demonic nature didn't change. He put a piece of dry food in everyone's mouth. They were not allowed to chew it. They had to sleep with it in their mouths, to avoid snoring. After all, it was impossible for him not to snore when he fell asleep in such a tired state. But with dry food in their mouths, it was different. They were hungry to begin with, and they weren't allowed to eat. Even when they fell asleep, they couldn't help but secrete saliva, which slowly melted the dry food. Chu Yang's calculations were extremely accurate. The dry food had completely melted, and there wasn't much difference between them and getting up. Complaints were heard everywhere. 10 days passed. Calculating the progress, they had already traveled 1,500 miles. During this period, there hadn't been any movement. It looked like the Li clan really couldn't be found this time. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. After all, in the eyes of the Li clan, Chu Yang and the others, who were first-grade supreme martial artists, couldn't reach a range of 10,000 feet below Chu Ling. Therefore, during this period of time, the surface of the earth was completely turned upside down. Li Qinglei and the others felt so wrong that they wanted to cry but had no tears. Who would have thought that such a situation would occur? The target had clearly appeared, and they had already locked onto it. Everyone chased after it, but after half a day, they discovered that the enemy had disappeared all of a sudden. Where could he have gone after disappearing? He didn't go up to the sky anyway. He must have dug into the ground, right? And so, the entire area where the sword spirit had disappeared, be it hills or mountains, they had all been turned upside down by the Li clan. How could it be just 10,000 feet? With such strength, they dug down and turned over 30,000 feet. The Li clan gained a lot. Some spirit beasts, such as century-old snakes and so on, were warm underground. This time, they were all turned over. Even rats were shaken to death one by one. Every rock larger than a human head was smashed. Looking over, the entire area of 800 miles was a desert. However, the real target was nothing. After learning of this situation, the Li clan once again sent out a large number of people. The second grandmaster of the Li clan, Li Xiangxi, personally led a team over. He grabbed Li Qinglei and gave him a good scolding. "Tell me, what's the use of you? You actually couldn't catch him even after seeing him? You actually lost him after chasing him for 300 miles. And you even said that he had mysteriously disappeared. Fuck, they're not ghosts." Li Qinglei's head drooped from the scolding, his veins popping. What he didn't know was that Li Xiangxi had hit the nail on the head with one sentence. They weren't ghosts. Yes, the sword spirit wasn't a ghost. But in essence, he was no different from a ghost. Strictly speaking, he was just a fucking old ghost. Li Qinglei, whose face and neck were red from the scolding, gritted his teeth and brought up valuable information. "Elder Master, I can guarantee that this batch of brats, they have turned and entered the northwest. As long as we maintain a tight blockade, they definitely won't be able to get out." "What's the use of telling me that?" Li Xiangxi was furious. "Hurry up and go look for them." The entire northwest was turned upside down. After this incident, the originally towering mountains and lofty ridges instantly turned into plains. Mountains were flattened one after another. He believed that in the future, the Northwest would have to change its name to the Great Northwest Plains. A few small vassal clans didn't do their jobs well and were wiped out by the enraged Li clan members on the spot. Every sound of wind and every tree was an enemy. The Li clan's large-scale operation was so abnormal, so tyrannical, and so extravagant that it naturally attracted the attention of the various superclans outside. For a moment, the gazes of the various superclans toward the northwest became even more intense and even more cautious. The Ling clan, Yi clan, Shao clan, and so on, which were the closest to the northwest. All of the people they sent out were secretly infiltrating the northwest. Among the law enforcement officers, there were also quite a number of people rushing toward the northwest. The officers of the interrogation hall naturally knew where their boss had gone. After such a long period of silence and no news, they had also sent people to investigate. The Li clan naturally wouldn't allow these people to enter. Therefore, the conflicts at the borders became more and more intense by the day. In the southeast, Ever since Chu Yang entered the heart of the continent, there had been no news of him at all. Everyone was burning with anxiety as well. Wu Jueqing's injuries had already recovered by more than half. After a long period of silence, he accepted everyone's request and brought Chu Lu out of the southeast in disguise with the purpose of training his disciples. She recalled that Chu Yang seemed to have said that he was going to the northwest back then. Therefore, Chu Lu also brought her teacher all the way to the northwest in a coquettish and threatening manner. Unknowingly, this remote northwest actually became a place where the winds and clouds gathered. When the entire continent was in chaos, Chu Yang was underground and naturally didn't know anything. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.